Sorry for the little false start there. My cameraman's not doing his job. Man, got to get rid of that guy. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. And we're down to the SEC. Last week, we unveiled our coaches' rankings for the other four conferences in the Power Five. Yes, Group of Five fans, there are capable, really good, excellent coaches in the Group of Five. We're going to rank all of them? Probably not. Unfortunately, not many people care. Man, you go Power Five, then you drop to the Group of Five, and the level of interest just goes away. So we're ranking the coaches in every conference here at the Voice of College Football. Check out the videos, please do. The Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC. And then, you know what we did for the Big 10? We did what we're doing right now. Not because we think the Big 10 or the SEC is better than anything else. No. Just got to a point where I thought, well, let's get some feedback from everyone. So you have obviously checked out the other videos. Again, Big 12, Pac-12, and ACC, and that gives you a look at those conferences. We did the Big 10 the other day with a call-in show with all of you. We're going to fire up the phone lines today to take your calls on the SEC coaches. And again, we can talk about anything concerning college football anytime we fire up the phone lines on the main channel. So keep in mind, there are times, let's say when a coach gets fired, I will go live immediately on a particular channel, and we are tunnel vision, tunnel focused on that particular topic or subject. But on the main channel here, National Topics, and you're the ultimate producer of the show. So we will take your calls and your comments there in the live chat. I am going to run down my SEC coaches rankings, 14 all the way up to number 1. Maybe 14 all the way up to number 2. Because number 1 may be a waste of breath. Number 2 may be a waste of breath. All right. Let's go to the live chat first. 27 on the line. Appreciate you being here. Did not realize until a couple minutes before I went live that I had not posted the video link. I had not set up the live stream, so I apologize for that, even though I had sent out a notification late last night. Hola. Always blah, 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 blah. Appreciate you being here. Always believe in yourself. Well, that's a good handle. That's a good handle. I shouldn't have given it the blah, blah, blah treatment, but I didn't see it. Always believe in yourself. Good there. Hola. Anybody there? Yes, believe in yourself. One other that you should believe in first and foremost, but that's certainly a good adage there. Carrie, hey, Carrie. There's a Carrie in one of my favorite shows that I binge watch all the time. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Would love to know who you root for and how long you've been watching. Good Sunday to you, Cheryl. Good to see you. Jan Sports. Hey, Jan Sports. Good to see you as well. Mr. HD. All the regulars, plus some. Again, Carrie, not necessarily familiar with. Love to know. Oh, Auburn fan. Okay, good to see that. Good to see that. We're running a deal right now on the Voice of College Football where we would like everybody to take part because I would love to know. Almost 34,000 subscribers. Would love to get there today. 34,000 subscribers. I'm probably 35 away, something in that range. Would love to know when we produce videos who we're producing them for. Who do you root for? There it is. Who's your team? Contact me at markrogerstv@gmail. markrogerstv@gmail. And you can tell me other stuff about yourself, how you became a college football fan, what you like, what you don't like about college football, what you like, don't like about the channel, whatever you want to tell me. But contact me at markrogerstv@gmail. Let me know who is your team. So we got Carrie, the Auburn fan, on the line, and fortunately, we produced some really good Auburn content with E2C Network recently. And Auburn, of course, had its spring game yesterday. I've yet to check it out. Rob J. Good to see you. Mr. HD, all I know, Group of 5 Sunbelt Billy should be ranked lower right. Mark? We shall see. Demetrius. BK last place. Sure, Brian Kelly should be in last place. Of course. What did he do? What has he ever accomplished? Daniel Henry, go Bucks. Dwayne Haskins will not be forgotten. We had a very sad show yesterday, very heartfelt, and I appreciate all the great comments that came in and sympathies toward Dwayne Haskins yesterday. We were set to roll on our spring football update all day, and we did. We were on live from noon till 7 or 7:30 Eastern time yesterday with all the spring games going on. But, of course, we found out the news concerning Dwayne Haskins, one of the great single-season performances in the history of college football for a quarterback, Big Ten record holder in many ways, and, of course, much more important than that, a father and a husband, and taken from us way too soon. Yes, Cheryl, please hit the like button. Best in the business. Thank you so much for that compliment. I appreciate it. You know that. Franks said, hush, 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 little baby. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. What do you think of Billy Napier's start? I will talk about that when I get to Billy Napier in the rankings, somewhere between 14 and who knows? Maybe Billy Napier. I've got him at number 1. Colby, good to see you. Nate as well. Roger. And this is the guy that makes our West Virginia show go on Friday night. So Friday night, it's typically at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, West Virginia Live. It's a good listen. Take it in. Golden Blue Dude is campaigning for Shane Beamer. Let's understand something here. I seem to need to mention this each and every time, and I get it, because if you look at our rankings and you see, hey, my guy's 13th out of 14, or he's 9th out of 14, he must suck, or the guy that's doing the rankings must not know what the hell he's talking about. Okay. Let's understand that take the Big Ten. Big Ten, we got 14 coaches. Scott Frost is not getting the job done. Mike Loxley, the jury's still out. Then you've got a gathering of coaches like Brett Bielema, Greg Schiano, who have done an excellent job elsewhere at other times, but they have just started their jobs at their current stop this past season. So Scott Frost is the only guy underachieving clearly. The other 13 coaches are doing either an excellent job or a capable job. But when you deal with rankings, somebody has to be at the bottom. When you get 14 head coaches in the league, somebody's got to be 12, somebody's got to be 10th, and they might be really good football coaches, but they got to be ranked somewhere. If I'm going to rank Shane Beamer at 5th, who am I going to rank below him? Okay, I think we understand Shane Beamer's coached 1 season. All right, Mark Stanina, Texas A&M, for better or worse. Good to see you here, and I appreciate everybody letting me know who you root for here, but please, I am keeping track. So please hit me up at markriderstv@gmail. I'm not going to abuse your email. That's been brought up once or twice. Anybody can attest right here. They have not gotten any emails from me, and some people have had their emails for years. Not doing anything with your email. So you've got my email as well. So it's a fair trade right there, markriderstv@gmail. And maybe I shouldn't have done this, because what's happened is, that used to be locked down airtight. I only had business contacts in my markriderstv@gmail. And now it's been one of those deals where it's just opened up. You know how that is. Spam and all sorts of crap coming in. Ferris is here. Good to see you. I'm going to screw up your name because I can't read those letters, but Demetrius, yes, Brian Driscoll is a phenomenal, great Notre Dame guy, and we get him on as much as possible, but he's running around like a madman, just like I am, so it's difficult to track him down. But believe me, Brian and I have a great discussion every time we bring him on. He was kind enough the other day, maybe 2 weeks ago, to come on for like a full hour. And we had a great conversation on Notre Dame football. Not just he ran down all the positions, offense and defense, and then we really dove into Notre Dame in the landscape of college football. It's always a great conversation. He loves coming on. He's like, Mark, man, I would come on all the time, but he's busy. Uncle Rico making the statement, the obvious statement of the day: the SEC is the weakest conference of all. Daniel loves college football. Well, you're at a good place, Daniel. This is your place right here. Appreciate the work you do, Mark, to help push through the off season. We will keep it up, Daniel. Thank you so much for the encouragement. Coming next, schedule previews. Schedule previews. I will deliver those. And then also we will dive into player rankings. Player rankings. Mr. HD is telling us that one Akeem Messidor, the defensive lineman from West Virginia, is a done deal to Miami. And we've discussed that. Check out the videos. Noah, where do you think Tyler Sheen will end up transferring to? I really don't know. We've talked about it. The offensive lineman from Vanderbilt. He's visited Kentucky, Alabama, LSU is in the mix. He has a definite connection to Virginia. I don't remember off the top of my head what that is right now. Ferris only disagreed with Mel Tucker and Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz and Mel Tucker were the only, and I'll take that. Hey, Ferris, if you can agree with my Big Ten coaches rankings and I only got two guys screwed up, I'll take it. And I understand people thinking I got Mel Tucker a little high. I get it. Jerry says Brian Kelly is doing a phenomenal job considering the state of disarray he inherited. Well, I cannot rate Brian Kelly on what he's doing at LSU right this second, except for player recruitment, which is sketchy. He closed down a class in 2022. He obviously was building the Notre Dame class of 22, and he just got in on the tail end of the LSU class. And then what he's doing in the transfer portal, and we're going to see a whole lot of transfer portal action here soon. Well, thank you there, Tukey G. Can confirm Mark doesn't have my email, and he has never emailed me. There you go. So I can't do that. Sure. Thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate that. And if you don't want to email me, I get it. That's fine. That's fine. It's not going to break my heart. I will sleep just as long tonight, so it'll be fine. Either way, just I would love to get an as accurate account as possible, because you got to understand, just about everybody you all watch on YouTube, I'm guessing, the only people I can think of have like focuses. They have a focus on Georgia, West Virginia, Clemson, that's about as far as I can go on the people I know on YouTube besides myself. Golden Blue Dude, Uncle Lou, Pigskin Pete. Those are the only three guys I know on YouTube. Is that it? Volunteer Roadshow. I know 4 other guys on YouTube. Anyway, that's all I can think of. So most guys are focused on one team. I would love to know who I'm broadcasting to, who we're talking to in terms of fan bases. Michigan's in the lead, so that may give an incentive to Michigan State and Ohio State fans and Notre Dame fans and whoever hates Michigan to email me at markrogerstv@gmail.com. Let me know who you root for, because I'm keeping count. And I believe Michigan's our number 1 fan base. We've got a list coming in from Sean. Saban 1, Smart 2, Kelly 3, Fisher 4, Stoops 5, Pittman 6, Kiffin 7, Leach 8, Napier 9, Beamer 10, Heupel 11, Drinkwitz 12, Harsin and Lee. Okay. Seems like a reasonable list. I can't bash that in any way. Ferris has Fisher at 3, Kelly at 4. Cheryl, I'll send you an email today. How about that? I'll get you a nice looking email. I'll craft it, ask you how your day's going. We'll get that done. How does Harsin still have a job at Auburn? Well, how does Harsin still have a job? He's coached 1 season. Give the guy a break. Yes, Rob, I like Sean's list. Like it. Let's look at my list. Okay, our SEC coaches rankings. Once again, check out the Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC, and the Big 10. And we will take calls here at the Voice of College Football. And I got to tell you, no offense to Florida State, but I'm not crazy about their colors. There we go. At number 14, okay, this seems to be obvious. Okay, this is where it's difficult. One of the many spots where it's difficult to rank coaches. Is Clark Lee the worst coach in the SEC? If Clark Lee took over Alabama tomorrow, would he go 2-10 next year? I don't think so. If he took over Tennessee, would he go 2-10 next season? No, I don't think so. So this is based on him inheriting, and he took the job. Can't cry over that. He took the job. Him inheriting the worst roster by far in the SEC. It's not even close. So let's understand when we talk about the worst team in the Big Ten, we can have a debate. Talk about the worst team in the ACC. Well, it's probably Duke, but not that much less than Georgia Tech or Syracuse. Worst team in the Big 12. Okay, Kansas is an easy choice there. But when we talk about Vanderbilt in the SEC, they play a different brand of football. They play a different level of football than everybody else in the SEC. So he has taken over just the ultimate underdog. And he lost every game in the SEC, and he won 2 games, and he barely beat Connecticut. And who else did he beat? Somebody probably like Middle Tennessee. So is he the worst coach in the Big Ten, in the SEC? I don't know, but he's got to be ranked last for a number of reasons. Okay, he just went 2-10, and he's a first-year head coach that has just notched the 1 season. He has never coached before. So if somebody else came in, let's say Pat Fitzgerald left Northwestern, took over Vanderbilt, and went 2-10, 0-8 his first season, I would say, well, that was a rough start. He needs to do better than that. And I expect him to do better than that, but that was a rough start. But it's Pat Fitzgerald. He's got a 15-year track record at Northwestern. I'm not going to rank him last in the SEC. So this is about inexperience. That's all it is. It's about inexperience and obviously taking by far the worst team in the SEC, the worst roster, the worst talent, the worst everything in the SEC, the worst facilities and everything, and then producing the worst. So he's doing what just about any other coach would do. All right, at number 13, this ranking could change considerably because this coach has done a strong, solid job elsewhere. He comes to Auburn. Did he have a horrible season last year? No, he did not. Auburn did not have a horrible season. Okay, 6-7, you are what your record says you are. I get it. But if you dissect the Auburn season, and I watched a lot of Auburn football, did you see the Alabama game? Did Auburn not look like the 3rd or 4th best team in the country that day against Alabama? I know it's the Iron Bowl. I know there's a lot of emotions running high, but Auburn played Alabama. But let's understand, I know when everybody goes to the default card of that's a rivalry game, it's always tight. No, it's not always tight. Auburn has beaten Alabama 36-0. Alabama has beaten Auburn by 6 touchdowns. it happens. I don't buy the whole rivalry game. They're always close, because that's not the truth. I don't buy these stupid cliches that people throw around all the time that aren't back up with facts. So what I'm saying is that, yes, Brian Harsin went 6-7 last year, but he came with an eyelash of winning at Penn State. He came with an eyelash of beating Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Yes, it's deplorable and unthinkable to blow a 25-point lead against Mississippi State, but he did lose his starting quarterback in the third quarter when they still had a lead. Still shouldn't blow a game, because you had a veteran backup quarterback in TJ Finley, so they should have been able to hang on and do just enough defensively and offensively to hang on to a 28-3 lead. So really the only bad loss coming down the stretch might have been the South Carolina game, but the way Shane Beamer finished, South Carolina showed us to be a pretty capable team. So Brian Harsin, 6-7, 3-5 record at Auburn. Do you know what I picked Brian Harsin to do last year? To go 6-7. So he did what I thought he would do with that roster against that schedule. Brian Harsin goes to the ACC and coaches at Virginia against the ACC Coastal Division. Maybe he shows us he's still a really good coach. He went 69-19 at Boise State. Now, that is impressive, but again, that should be taken into context. Everybody goes 69-19 at Boise State. Dan Hawkins, Houston Nutt, Chris Peterson, the whole line of Boise State coaches over the last 25 years have excelled at Boise State. So everybody goes to Boise State and succeeds and goes 12-1, 11-2, 10-3 every year. So he didn't mess things up at Boise State, but he did not build Boise State. Houston Nutt built Boise State. So give him credit for being capable at Boise State, but don't look at the record and say, wow, he blew it up at Boise State. Everybody does. Everybody wins at Boise State. Then he goes to Auburn, and they get off to a 6-2 start. That Auburn team, they beat Ole Miss. They beat somebody else good. They beat LSU. LSU, of course, was dysfunctional, but talented. And then their losses down the stretch, they were all close games. All close games. And then they lost to Houston. Well, Houston was the second best Group of 5 team. Went to an American Conference Championship game. Brian Harsin's first season, it's not about his first season. It's about what's happened since then. And something's not right. Your defensive coordinator doesn't leave, especially when it's a defensive coordinator with a reputation and respect of a Derek Mason, doesn't leave for a job where he's going to make $300,000 less. And the offensive coordinator, I don't necessarily know if that situation was in Brian Harsin's control, but we had player defections. It just was a disaster of an off season for 3 or 4 months for Brian Harsin. And of course, he almost lost his job. So we'll see from here, but I'm not as negative on Brian Harsin as most people are. But still, based on the first season at Auburn, and I'm ranking these coaches today, right now. Who are they today? Otherwise, I'd have him 5 spots higher based on his work at Boise State. Now, you have to take into consideration what they've done in the past, because if a coach has one down season, you don't just plummet them to the bottom, because they've shown who they are. So the Boise State work is taken into consideration, but I'm ranking the coaches right now, not ranking their legacy. And Brian Harsin did with the Auburn football team what I expected him to do. He went 6-6. That's what I picked him to do based on that roster and that schedule. The schedule's brutal. That's what I expected. It's been since then. Now things might be stabilizing a bit. I haven't heard anything bad, negative in a while. So we'll see if Brian Harsin can get it back. He fought for his job. I'll give him credit there. And he retained his job. All right, at number 12, we got Eli Drinkwitz. Okay. Eli Drinkwitz is not meeting the standard of Barry Odom, who got fired. Eli Drinkwitz is a good interview. I love to listen to the guy talk. He's funny. He's fun. He's not your typical football coach. I'm not saying that football coaches aren't fun, but you know what? They answer the questions and they get through the interviews and they just want to get off. No, he has a great time being interviewed, and he's fun to listen to. And he seems like a great guy. And he had the one, again, almost like the Boise State situation with the procession of coaches who achieve there, that you have to give them credit for winning all those games, but you wonder, okay, how good is this guy? Because the dude in front of him, he won every game too, and then the dude in front of him won every game, and it's like the Wisconsin coaches. They pretty much all do the same thing. So you wonder, in trying to distinguish each one, how good are they? Well, Eli Drinkwitz stepped into that Appalachian State situation after Scott Satterfield left. And what did Eli Drinkwitz do? Well, he went 12-1 at Appalachian State, but that's what Scott Satterfield was doing at Appalachian State, winning the Sun Belt and winning all of his games. So he only has the one season at App State. Then he goes to Missouri in 11-12 and 8-10 in the SEC. Barry Odom's got to be thinking, well, I was doing better than that, a little bit better than that. So I'm not going to pile drive Eli Drinkwitz as being horrible at Missouri, but he's through 2 seasons, they've dropped off a little bit. And defensively, they're horrible. And Missouri was playing some good defense under Barry Odom, not under Eli Drinkwitz. Now, one positive note for Drinkwitz, this last recruiting class. So he might be using his personality to connect with these players. He just brought in the 12th ranked class in the country. That doesn't happen at Missouri. That didn't happen under Gary Pinkel or Barry Odom or anybody. So Drinkwitz at 12. At number 11, we got Billy Napier, and he could be a high riser. The next 3 are giving us, really the next 4, giving us early indications of, I'll pull back and pump the brakes on the term greatness, but they're giving us early indications, especially the next 3, that they can win in the toughest conference. Okay, Billy Napier's done nothing at Florida. Win-loss, he's 0-0. So he's neutral. But I like the early indications in regards to recruiting. We know the environment and the effort given to recruiting under Dan Mullen. Not good. Not up to Florida standards. Good if you're at TCU. Good if you're at North Carolina State, but not good at Florida. Not good enough. Nowhere close to good enough. Billy Napier is pounding the pavement. He and his staff are pounding the pavement. No, he didn't win recruiting battles all over the place. He lost most of them, but you're going to lose most of them. He's going toe-to-toe with Alabama and Florida, or Georgia. So he's going to lose most of the recruiting battles. That's okay. He needs to win his share, and he's starting to. And the record, again, at Louisiana, they weren't good when he took them over. He made them good, so he gets credit for that. Drinkwitz stepped into App State. They were a machine. He kept it going. Harsin stepped into Boise State. They were a machine. He kept it going. This is different when you build a program. I give a lot of credit to guys that build programs, that build it, that make a difference. Lincoln Riley made a small difference at Oklahoma. The elite status of Oklahoma football was already pretty firm. Dabo Swinney built Clemson. All right. Napier at 11. Be interesting to see what he does with Anthony Richardson, if he can squeeze that talent, and squeeze it, mold it into a first-rate SEC quarterback, not Emory Jones 2.0. All right, at number 10, we got Shane Beamer. There you go, Golden Blue dude. Shane Beamer. I hope that's high enough for you. Better be. That's where he belongs. Man, he had a great first season. But it's one season. It's one season. Will Muschamp was doing that. So not at the end. I get it. Will Muschamp finished at 2-8, but Will Muschamp was going 7-6, 9-4. Hey, there was for as much disdain as Will Muschamp receives among SEC fans, because yes, he ultimately failed at Florida, failed at South Carolina. He took over a pretty dismal South Carolina situation, and they went from what, 3-9, 6-7, 9-4. That's where it becomes difficult. So we see this line of coaches that we're getting to right now, and the early signs are good. They've taken bad situations, made them stable, strong, good situations. They're showing hope. They're giving their fan base hope. But to go from, what was he, 6-6? Regular season, 6-6. To go from there to 9-3 in the SEC, now that's a gigantic jump. That's enormous, because Shane Beamer right now has taken a bad situation in South Carolina. Was going to say dumpster fire. It's not. Wasn't. They went 2-8 one season. Okay, so he takes that situation and he starts to compete with, okay, beats down Vandy. Okay, that's obvious. But competes against Tennessee and Florida, down Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, Kentucky. You know, the teams on their level. Auburn's on their level right now. And he wins some of those games. That's good. That's good. That's an improvement. All credit to Shane Beamer. The 6-6 to go to 9-3 becomes, oh, we got to beat Arkansas or Mississippi State on our schedule, or we got to beat Kentucky. That becomes hard. You see a lot of coaches take over bad programs, and they're good coaches, so they know how to run a program. They know how to clean up what's wrong, and they can get it from, okay, 2-10, 3-9 to boom, 6-6, because, man, I fixed a lot of stupid stuff that's going on here. I weeded out a lot of garbage, got them to hit the road, transfer portal, and I figured some things out. I did some player acquisition, and I ran a better, and I tightened up the technique and the fundamentals and got these guys. I kicked them in the rear end, got the strength and conditioning improved. So I went from 3-9 to 6-6, but now to go to 9-3 is a huge lift, especially in this conference. In any conference it is, because you got to start beating the mid-levels consistent, and you got to pick off somebody. But good job, Shane Beamer. I like what I see, especially with the quarterback situation that he had this past season. 4 quarterbacks, none of them any good. I credit all of them. I'm not discounting anybody. I don't like to criticize college athletes, but they did the best they could. But they were not good quarterbacks at this level in the SEC. Now he's got a legit quarterback. He has roughly a top 10 quarterback in college football, right? Who's better than Spencer Rattler? Stroud and Young and Van Dyke and Devin Leary and maybe Ewers. He's got to play. We got to see him. Maybe Casey Thompson. Caleb Williams, we guess. Probably is. Bo Nix is probably on his level. Spencer Rattler. You know, his quarterback play just went from 80th in the country to top 10 to 15 in the country. All right, Shane Beamer at 10. At number 9, we've got, here's another guy. Took a bad situation, cleaned it up. Changed the identity, changed the environment, changed the culture. Is a different dude than Jeremy Pruitt. And, of course, a different offensive mind than Jeremy Pruitt, who's a defensive guy, of course. But Josh Heupel brought excitement to Tennessee. And it doesn't hurt that he had a veteran quarterback in Hendon Hooker who played lights out. Well, that's to the benefit of Josh Heupel, but obviously Josh Heupel impacted Hendon Hooker. 31 touchdowns and 3 picks. Hendon Hooker was the best kept secret in college football last year. So Heupel has a nice 7-6 year. He came within what some people would argue a bad call or a call at the goal line, being 8-5. Their out-of-conference loss in the regular season was to Pitt. That was no shame. Pitt went on to an ACC championship. So they played a really tough schedule. Georgia, Pitt, Purdue, Kentucky, Alabama. Josh Heupel. And what people don't know, unless they watch Tennessee football, is he knows how to operate the running game, too. They were extremely strong running the football. Heupel at 9. Number 8, you talk about impressive. Chad Morris took over a team that was winning 7 and 8 games under Brett Bielema. I know 4 and 8 last year, but 7 and 8 win teams at Arkansas. And people anticipated Chad Morris, offensive coordinator at Clemson, did a nice job at SMU as head coach. But for some reason, it just did not work. Chad Morris did an awful job at Arkansas. Did not win a game in the SEC. Sam Pittman steps in. He's never been a head coach, offensive line coach at Georgia. And it's just been phenomenal. They went 3-7 2 years ago. His first year, they went 3-7. But if you watched Arkansas football and you understand how close they were, how good they looked, they got blown out a couple times, but they were so much. They went from Chad Morris was so bad, they lost to North Texas and Colorado State and Western Kentucky. Teams and SEC teams should never even come close to losing to. Sam Pittman puts that 3-7 season down, and then they jump. They were really good last year. They beat Texas A&M. They beat Penn State. They beat Mississippi State. They took Ole Miss to a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. Arkansas, phenomenal job by Sam Pittman. 9-4, top 15 team in the country last year. Where do they go from here? Again, the leap is going to be difficult because now you got to start beating Bama and whomever else is good that year. Who's the flavor of the year, whether that's Ole Miss or Texas A&M, LSU. But Sam Pittman, my goodness, impressive. Number 7, we've got kind of the oddball of the SEC, but he's come in and he's doing his thing and with mixed results. But I go back to Mike Leach, and I know this is a now ranking. This is a today ranking, and I'll get to your comments soon. I think I'm going to take a break after Mike Leach, and I'm going to look at the comments. Consider this. Okay, Mike Leach, this kind of reminds me looking at his record and thinking about his first game at Mississippi State where they racked up KJ Costello racked up 640 yards passing, whatever it was, 635. And set the all-time SEC record, and they beat LSU, who was coming off the national championship. And I had just picked Mississippi State to go 2-8. And oh my goodness, I got torched that I was such an idiot. Look at Mississippi State. They just set an SEC passing record, and they beat LSU. And you're an idiot for picking them 2-8. Okay, well, at the end of the season, they were 2-7. All right. So Mike Leach, anyway, has a bad first season. And ironically, the passing game was awful. And they won the last couple of games of the season, last 2 games of the regular season and the bowl game. They won with defense and running the football. Now, this past season, the Will Rogers passing game was exceptional. So Mike Leach he's installed his passing attack. It took him a year. He had to get the right guy. Will Rogers, exceptional player, under the radar guy that a lot of people don't recognize. Will Rogers, watch him play. He operates this offense in the Luke Falk manner, as good as anybody. And Mississippi State, man, at times last year, they were really good. They they took Texas A&M to a last-second field goal. Who'd they beat that was good? They beat Texas A&M. They took Arkansas to a last-second field goal. The thing I go back to with Mike Leach is think about Texas Tech football right now. You probably don't think about Texas Tech football. Who thinks about Texas Tech football? Nobody. Who thinks about Texas Tech football? Name the head coach at Texas A&M. How many people know? Got 90 people watching. Hopefully a couple thousand will watch it eventually, something in that range. How many of you know who the head coach is at Texas Tech? And if you don't know, he was just hired he was hired just after the season, and he replaced another coach. And do you know who the head coach who lasted at 2.5 years at Texas Tech? Nobody thinks about Texas Tech outside of Lubbock, Texas. And there are people who still, I could not locate Lubbock, Texas on a map. Anyway, Mike Leach goes to Texas Tech. Can you envision Texas Tech right now finishing in the top 25 in the nation 5 out of 6 years? Who finishes in the top 25 in the country 5 out of 6 years if you're not an elite or you're not really good? You're not. Penn State doesn't finish in the top 25 5 out of 6 years. Notre Dame. Mike Leach did that at Texas Tech. Then he went to Washington State, and Washington State had been winning 3 games a season for a decade, and he goes 11-2 after a couple of years. Within an island, his biggest fault at Washington State was he couldn't beat Washington, or he would have been in a Rose Bowl, or maybe 2. But he had a good run at Washington State, considering you don't get players at Washington State. Then he comes to Mississippi State, and he's now playing in the most difficult division in college football, and it's not even close. This was the toughest division in college football. This was the toughest division in college football, the SEC West, when Arkansas was awful and Mississippi State / Ole Miss weren't very good. And it was still by far the toughest division. Now it's crazy good. Who's the worst team? Auburn? Auburn's the worst team in the SEC West. Auburn might be able to win the ACC Coastal or win a Pac-12 division. So anyway, Mike Leach, it's been a mixed start. We got to see a little bit more of what Mississippi State would look like under Mike Leach this past season. He got the passing game rolling. They threw for 1 million yards. They went 7-6. The bowl game was disappointing against Texas Tech because he was facing his old school, and you would think the motivation would have been there to perform well. He was missing a ton of players, and they got trucked. So Mike Leach, he's a guy that it would be interesting to see him at Notre Dame, Ohio State, fill in the blank, to see what he would do, because he always has an underdog program, and he does here as well. Mike Leach at 7. Okay. There's the Lane train. Has Little Lane finally grown up? He still kind of whines and complains a little bit. He's still kind of a whiner, but that's okay. He's going to do that when he's 65 years old. So Lane Kiffin was like this phenom. Plus, he had some family connections, of course. If you know his father, longtime defensive coordinator in the NFL, legend, Monty Kiffin. Had an NFL coaching job at the age of 29, 30. So anyway, he didn't show us anything with the Raiders, Tennessee, or USC that would cause us to think he doesn't know what he's doing, or he knows what he's doing and he's going to be amazing. What he showed us on the field is he can scheme an offense, and he can get kids to come play for him because they enjoy playing there. And he can also screw things up and do stupid things and say stupid things and act like a child. But he's losing that. He's finally growing up a little bit, and he's getting better when it comes to that. And the Ole Miss situation's phenomenal. What I like about what Lane Kiffin's doing better than anything, look at his last recruiting class, which was a top 15 to 20 recruiting class in the country in 2022. Look at the recruiting class. Something like 5 of the top 7 players are on the defensive side. He wants to win. He could take lesser talent and scheme up and score and put up 500 yards of offense per game with lesser talent. Not that he wants lesser talent, but he needs grown men to play in the trenches and to hit people on defense in the SEC. And that's what he went after, because he inherited maybe the worst defense in the SEC, and they did not play the worst defense in the SEC last year. So he didn't mastermind the defense, but he got it fixed, and that's his job as a head coach. Lane Kiffin's really good. Lane Kiffin's really good. And like Mike Leach, he's always going to be a character. He's always going to be his own man to a certain extent. And that might rub people the wrong way. And it apparently rubs me the wrong way once in a while. I just think he's a little petty and kind of childish at times, but that's fine if you win games. All right, let's get to the comments. I'm going to go to the bottom. And I get often criticized, and not in a bad way, mean way. I don't mean it that way, but for being like 45 minutes behind in the chat. So I get it. I'll go to the most recent comment, and then we'll catch up. John says, Lane's partying always pissed off Saban. He's given up the partying at Ole Miss, but unfortunately he's replaced partying with another vice, which is dating Ole Miss grad students. Well, don't know about that. Would not surprise me. Daniel, Ohio State, Michigan. Okay. Oh, I bet Daniel's a little perturbed with my comment about Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, okay, not being the best division in college football. Sorry, Daniel, it's not. It's probably second, but that lineup does not compare with the SEC West. There is no Rutgers in the SEC West. There is no Maryland in the SEC West. And there is no Indiana in the SEC West. If there was one of those, that'd be fine. There's 3 of them, and they don't exist in the SEC West. Those 3 teams, and I'll put Indiana in that category from this past season. Of course, they played much better, and they were a very capable, good team the 2 seasons before that. My doubt wouldn't be about them losing in the SEC West. It would be, would they be able to field a team at the end of the year? The likes of Rutgers and Maryland, I think, would get bloodied in that division. So they would get killed. So you've got 4/7 of a great division. I get that. I'm with you. All right, 28-80-28. Mark, why is it that major powers don't come after Leach? It's a good question. Maybe they're turned off by his presentation. He's odd. He's quirky. He's strange. He says strange things. They're usually harmless, but sometimes they're, and even more so 10 years ago, he was odd 10 years ago. We've gotten used to him. Plus, we're getting to a point in society, we're becoming more sensitive in a bad way in a lot of ways, but in other ways, we're kind of used to head coaches being less buttoned up. So people have gotten used to Mike Leach, but I think that's it. I don't remember. I would have to think back of what the landscape was when he left Texas Tech and took the Washington State job in terms of, okay, what else was open and where could he have gone? That would have been, and look at Texas Tech. Look at who's coached there before and after. Cliff Kingsbury is making a bazillion dollars in the NFL, and he couldn't win 33% of his games in the Big 12. But Mike Leach outcoached circles around Cliff Kingsbury, who's now with the Cardinals. Tommy Tuberville didn't keep it up. And certainly Matt Wells did not. Daniel says the Big Ten East is over the West. I've clearly denounced that. Yes, Jeff. I know. I misspoke for about 0.4 of a second. Then I caught myself. The Pirate is awesome. All right. Terrence and Jeff got the Texas Tech question. Very good. Thank you. South Carolina offense should be quite interesting. Yakov 22. Absolutely. Shane Beamer's got a quarterback. He navigated a 7-6 record with the worst quarterback situation, one of the worst in the Power Five, the worst in the SEC. Joey McGuire is the Texas Tech head coach. Yes. Jordan, thank you so much. Of course, NC State was one of Mississippi State's wins, and they won that handily, 24-10, I believe. Pittman, Leach should be swapped. He likes Pittman over Leach. Okay, John. Good to see Peanut Butter here and Peanut Butter Hero here. Jordan, good to see you. Everybody else is where? Well, what have we got? Mr. T-Dub. Yeah. 8. It was the biggest dumpster fire in the SEC. Yes, it was. Went 9-4. Okay. It's one season. One season. Many of you overreact. We're not going to overreact. That's one of the problems with our society. Overreaction. Here it's harmless. It's just about ranking football coaches. And of course, you understand that we all have different rankings. So any rankings I put out there are going to get criticized, of course. All right. Here's the faithful one right here. This is a phenomenal statement that my man DeAndre makes every time he jumps on a live stream. And he gives us a call usually. That's good to hear from DeAndre because I love the historical talk from DeAndre and talking college football. He's just a tremendous fan of college football who thinks and the faithfulness and the commitment of, boom, here's a steady contribution. DeAndre, we appreciate that. I hope you know that. What is good? Anything else come in that I need to address? I said something well. That's good to know, Ferris. Thank you for that. Vermis tells us that Jimbo was the first to beat Saban in regards to former coaches. Of course, Kirby then did it. Vandy Dandy lets us know Vandy Dandy. So maybe when I utter a comment about Vandy about every, 7 months, Vandy Dandy steps up. Good to see you, Vandy Dandy. This is what's good about college football right here. We've got our Alabama fans, our Ohio State fans, our Clemson fans, etc. That's easy. That's easy to do. I've been an Ohio State fan my whole life. It's been pretty easy. Pretty easy, huh? But I will back up my fan loyalty because most of my other teams that I've rooted for in life have sucked, and I have been a faithful fan. So I love the faithful fans of, in this instance, Vandy Dandy, a Vandy fan. Can you just, whoever you root for, I got Michigan fans on here, Ohio State fans, Alabama fans, etc. Imagine being a Vandy fan. Let that sink in. Who has Vandy lost to in the last 5 years out of conference? FCS schools. I think they lost to Middle Tennessee State. They lost to Temple, Derek Mason's first year. Forget competing in the SEC. They can't beat Group of 5 teams half the time. Imagine. And Vandy Dandy is bragging about leading South Carolina with a minute left. Okay? Beamer would, would have lost. Peanut Butter Hero, if you live in Missouri, you would not expect much out of life. That's why the Rams left. Well, remember the Rams first came there. Yes, we did think that the Missouri would go to the Big Ten. Rob Wiseman is telling me that he loves the show, but I need a better camera. I put $2,000 into this one. This is until the channels become much more popular. This is all you're going to get, Rob. Sorry. Not spending any more on a camera. G. Bama Boy says that Eli Drinkwitz is the worst coach in the SEC, and that wouldn't surprise me. I kind of set up that narrative to a certain extent. We got to find out about Clark Lee. Again, me and everybody else in the world is going to rank Clark Lee last because of the obvious. I like, got to hear a lot from Vandy Dandy today. Vandy Dandy says Clark Lee's first action as coach was to make people earn their jersey number. That disciplinarian approach isn't going to work at a place like Vandy. They should be given a parade for being there. I don't know about that. You are obviously not a Clark Lee fan. I know little about the man, and really nobody else is paying that much attention to know. And yes, Rob J., what James Franklin did at Vandy. Let's understand that the SEC East at the time was in its worst shape ever. So James Franklin had to play a much weaker SEC East, but still, it was the SEC East and games against the SEC West, 2 of them every year. And yes, James Franklin went 9-4 2 consecutive years. John, I disagree, Mark. Throw in the portal departures and the reports of Harson's behavior last year, and I think it's easy to make a case that Auburn had a horrible year last year. You didn't listen to what I said, John. I didn't say they didn't have a horrible year. I was talking about the regular season. They did not have a bad season, a bad football season. The football season that started the first week of September and ran to the bowl game. That's what I was talking about. I made a clear distinction between that, what we saw on the field, versus what's happened since then. So, all right. Oh, Mr. TW. I'm glad that I got to see your super chat right here. Thank you so much for the contribution. Everyone, you can contribute here in the super chat, of course, as you see from DeAndre and from Mr. TW, or at Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. You see it on the ticker down below. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Search Mark Rogers TV. We appreciate your contributions. Saban, Smart, Pittman. Who cares after that? I mean, Leach, Kiffin, Jimbo. There's another coach out there that we'll get to here soon that's really doing a bang-up job. All right. Anything else? Hope I did not miss another super chat. They usually light up at the top, and they should, but they are not today. Daniel, SEC East or Big Ten West, which division sucks more? Well, if you compare them against the other divisions in that conference, yes, they suck. If you compare them against the Pac-12 or the ACC, they clearly do not suck. The Big Ten West is deep, strong, just doesn't have an elite. The real MVP is showing up. Good to see you. All right, let's get back to it. 904 Hurricane showing up for the SEC discussion today. I appreciate that. It's all about the U. Hashtag all about the U. Certainly nobody I need to talk to. All right. Mr. X likes Billy Napier as a great coach for Florida. Again, we got to see it play out, but he did a nice job. He did an exceptional job at Louisiana. 904 Hurricane. Apologies, Mark. I accidentally tripped and fell on your like button. Hopefully, I didn't break it. Well, keep tripping back and forth, everybody. Give me one trip. Trip up one time for me today, and we'll be friends for life. Thank you, Jerry. Hit the like button. I appreciate everybody. I can't acknowledge everybody, but I appreciate those people that jump in the chat and say, hey, hit the like button. It's easy. My like ratio is probably about the typical YouTube person. I don't look at other people's channels, but I would assume. I'd say on the average video, like less than 10% of likes. Like if I get 1,000 videos, 1,000 views on a video, I get way less than 100 likes. I just, it's not hard. Please hit the like button. Okay, back to, if I missed your comment, there is one easy way to make sure I get to your comment. You can figure that out, I think. All right, we left off at Lane Kiffin at number 6. At number 5, wow, what a job. Forget the stats on the screen. Forget those numbers. If you know anything about Kentucky football, this guy is killing it. Kentucky, an SEC team, recruit. Look at the numbers under Joker Phillips and the last few coaches. Look it up, what Kentucky football has looked like in recruiting. Recruiting in the 70s, the 60s. Mark Stoops just brought in the 12th or 13th best class in the country. People are starting to notice and recognize this guy, especially if I play on defense. If I got the talent, I'm going to the NFL. And he looked down, meaning on the map, south, and he thought, yeah, there's where all the players are. True. And we do need some of those guys. But the guys in our state plays decent high school football, but not great. But we got to lock up the guys in the state. But you know what? If I go straight north, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, there's not as many SEC type football players, but there's quite a few. There's dozens up there. I got to start getting some of those guys. Mark Stoops. They just went 10-3 and beat Iowa in the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Day. Kentucky. What was Kentucky? Look at Kentucky's records throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I remember doing a live broadcast on the sideline of Scott Field at Mississippi State in 1998, and Hal Mumme and Kentucky came to town. And I was doing a Thursday night sportscast. It was an ESPN Thursday night game, and that's about as good as Kentucky football got at that point. They played Penn State in the Outback Bowl, and that was just unheard of. Kentucky went 8-4 this year. Okay, 7-5. I mean, that particular year, back in the late 90s. Well, that lasted like 2 years. Kentucky has been awful. It's a basketball school. Still probably a basketball school. Mark Stoops and the numbers you see there, they're just climbing. Those numbers are dragged down by him building the first few years. They just went 10-3. And I don't care what they were ranked in the AP. I ranked them somewhere around 12 or 13 in the country. And they've won, 4 consecutive bowl games. And they are a top 15 to 25 program in the country right now. They were not a top 50 program in the country when Mark Stoops took over. They were lower than 10 group of 5 teams when he took it over. That's how good Mark Stoops is. The only thing that keeps him down at number 5 is he ran into the Hall of Fame tier here. So here we go. Jimbo's 4. Now, Jimbo's accomplished more. Has he accomplished more than Brian Kelly? Everybody's going to say national championship. You know what I think of national championships. They mean something, but this whole you won a national championship. Yes, credit Jimbo Fisher. He won a national championship, but was that one of the tougher national championships to win? They played in an awful conference. They played Duke in the ACC championship game, and then they beat a good Auburn team. But shoot, there have been New Year's Day 6 games and Citrus Bowls against teams as good as that Auburn team. They did not play some classic great team in the BCS championship game. Credit him for a national championship, but they're not all created equal. That's for sure. All right, to the here and now, Texas A&M. And he had a good run at Florida State. Of course he did. And the record looks great, 117-37. Okay, to the here and now, it's time. He is the ultimate put up or shut up guy. He is the ultimate. Nobody else in America is where he is in terms of put up and shut up. He's got all the money in the world, both personally and in the program. Facilities, recruiting base, fans, rabid fan base, 105,000 at Kyle Field every game. He's got everything he could ever want. And he's bringing in the players like an NFL team. Win. He's not winning. That season 2 years ago was nice to look at, 9-1. They almost went to the playoff. They could have been selected for the playoff. Let's always understand that when we're counting up playoff appearances, that it's a selection. It's an invitational. It's not a playoff. So he could have been in the playoff 2 years ago. They played a weak schedule that year. The 9-1 was a bit smoke and mirrors. They had another 8-4 year this last year. So everything but what's going on the field is amazing. What's going out on the field is top 20. It's top 20 in the country. What did I rank him this year? I don't know what the national polls ranked them. And again, if you watch me, you know I don't care. I had him like 17th. He had the 17th best team in the country. He had the 17th best results in the country. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. So, Jimbo Fisher, you can develop quarterbacks, or so they say. And you're an offensive mind, and you can recruit before and after NIL. So you've proven it in both worlds. And you've got every advantage in the world, except you play in the toughest division in college football. Win. And I don't know if this team is built, this 22 team is built to win big. I don't know. They're good. They're talented. They're going to have guys on the bench. They may lose the teams this year in which Texas A&M has more talented dudes standing on the sideline on the bench than the other team. But they lost to Mississippi State last year and Arkansas and Ole Miss. So Jimbo Fisher, deliver. If you deliver, you'll be higher in the rankings. You have yet to deliver. Anybody can go 8-4 with your roster. All right, at number 3, this guy gets slammed. And yeah, besides acting like a buffoon in front of the LSU basketball arena and trying to talk like a native Cajun, that's just beyond. Like, this guy's too smart to do that. But he did it, so he's not too smart to do it. So Brian Kelly, wow, this is going to be fascinating, isn't it? Because did he leave a better situation? Because he could control the schedule and not get into recruiting battles with the other elites? head-to-head all the time. But much like Jimbo, when we're sitting here 3 years from now, there are going to be no excuses, Brian Kelly. Yeah, your schedule's killer, but you've got all the money in the world, both you personally and in the program, and you snap your fingers and you get whatever you want. Texas A&M and LSU are the two programs right now that are desperate to win. There's a lot of desperate fans out there to win, but I'm talking about the administration. The school is desperate to win. They will do anything. They will break the bank for anything. If they get a chance to pick up a backup guard that's going to help them in the Ole Miss game, run the ball in the last 4 minutes to preserve a win, whatever it takes, they're going to do it. They will do anything to win. LSU and Texas A&M are desperate to win. Brian Kelly's a really good coach. So he does not have the national championship. That's why he gets knocked. Besides being a buffoon and acting like a moron, dancing in a video. So the dancing in the video, you can take that one way or the other. You can take it as this guy's a moron and this looks stupid, or you can take it as he's having fun and he's willing to do this. He's not above, like, I'm big name football coach, I'm not going to do that. So I didn't have any issue with the video, but it looks bad when you don't sign the guy. The guy signs with Alabama, the tight end. So that looks bad. Make sure if you're going to do a video and post it, you do it with a guy that actually signs with your team. And again, then the fake accent. But besides that, and Brian Kelly detractors are going to go on and on about not winning big games. And it's fair to a certain extent. To a certain extent. His teams have been prepared in most of those games, though. He lost 2 extremely close games to Georgia. He lost to the Georgia National Championship within an inch, within an overtime team in 2017. Lost by 1 point. You know, other times they haven't performed well. Of course, they got blown up by Clemson a couple times, most notably the ACC championship game and the playoff game in 2018. But look at Notre Dame before Brian Kelly. Somebody was trying to tell me the other day, who was it? Oh, I know who it was. I know who it was. And I'm not talking about a private conversation. I'm talking about on here. And I'm not talking about a caller. I'm talking about another YouTuber was trying to tell me that Ty Willingham did as good a job as Brian Kelly. I had to correct that quickly. You guys that watch me on a regular basis understand that I let some comments slide because I don't want to pick apart everybody that I talk to. But sometimes you can't let it slide. Sometimes you got to be, okay, no. I got to hold that comment accountable. That was moronic. Okay. Or just ignorant. People make ignorant comments. People talk about things they don't know what they're talking about. I try to refrain from doing that. I'm not smart or intelligent or knowledgeable about everything. So there are things I refuse to talk about because I don't know. I'll just say, I don't know. But Brian Kelly can coach. Man, he can build a program and coach. He can coach. You may not like his personality. He rubs people the wrong way. Who else out there is like that? Urban Meyer didn't necessarily endear people to him, but man, arguably the best winning percentage in history, Urban Meyer. Brian Kelly, again, what he did at Notre Dame, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. No, for you people who are hung up on national championships, he didn't win a national championship. Okay. But where he leaves Notre Dame today with Marcus Freeman versus what he inherited the 40th best program in the country. He is handing over to Marcus Freeman one of the 5 or 6 best programs in the country. All right. Brian Kelly, a 3. Number 2, this is obvious. The last 2 are obvious. And do I know that Nick Saban is the best coach in college football right this second? Could Dabo be better? Could Kirby be better? They could be right this second. But of course, Nick Saban's earned, since he is still in the running and arguably the best right this second, and we know he's the best of the last 20 years, if not of all time, then of course he earns the spot that he's got. And Kirby has earned this spot. And what's so funny is, and many of you may be in the chat, that if we were having this conversation and this ranking 3 months ago, how many people would be dissing Kirby Smart that he loses the big game, he can't win the big game, he can't get over the hump? Well, he did. He did. He's not a better football coach today than he was 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I've ranked him lower in previous rankings only because you got to give credit to finally pushing through, of course, but also he did make some questionable game management type decisions. He did. Kirby Smart, the top two, unlike the other conferences, you really can't debate. They're just so dominant. And Kirby Smart's been amazing. Let's credit Mark Richt to a certain extent here. Kirby's upgraded it, but Mark Richt did not inherit what Kirby Smart inherited. Mark Richt inherited 7-5, 5-6, 8-4. That's the program Mark Richt inherited, that he finished in the top 10 in the country 8 out of 15 seasons. And if there was a playoff, he would have been in the playoff 4 or 5 times. That's what Mark Richt built. So Mark Richt handed Kirby Smart a roster that he could immediately, in his second season, take Mark Richt's players and go to a national champ. Basically, not just play in a national championship game, show that he belonged in a national championship game. And again, I know they lost the game, but I evaluate these things differently. They had a national championship team. They came within overtime. And so that was, let's credit Mark Richt for that. He set up Kirby Smart, a la John Cooper setting up Jim Tressel, a la Jim Tressel setting up Urban Meyer. Who else could we throw into this? Who else has won national championships? You know, Gene Chizik to a certain extent, setting up Gus Malzahn to get to within seconds of a national championship in 13. So Kirby Smart, it's amazing. The recruiting is just, and of course at number 1. Should I even talk now? Should I say anything? Okay, I won't. Nick Saban's number 1. On to the comment section. Should I take calls? You guys want to? I am going down to the bottom of the comment section and hearing where G Bama Boy, Urban is an exceptional coach. And, well, I'm going to state it here and people are going to go crazy. There are ways to argue that Urban Meyer is the greatest coach of all time. But anyway, because he wins the most. But unfortunately, it's not really his personality. I wouldn't say his personality. It's about ethics and integrity. Cheryl, Urban's got his faults. Who doesn't? Yes, we all do. But exposing those faults in public, that's the problem. No objections from D Brown 2020. So D Brown has become my favorite viewer today. No objections. Christopher says Urban Meyer. This has turned into an Urban Meyer discussion. Seemed to sabotage himself. He did. All right. John says set up the phone lines. I will. Gary says setting up these lists is a major headache. You know what I'm going to do now? So I've done all the conferences. I haven't done a top 10 head coaches list in several years. It's been a long time. Do I throw this all together? And then I was thinking about who would my top 10 be? And there are so many guys that would be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 that are close to 10 that I thought, should I do a top 25 list? There are two rankings out there in two other conferences that I can still back them. I can still support them and defend them, but I regret them a little bit. George has been here for the whole show, but I'm working, can't talk right now. Just wanted, yes, George, thank you for being here. Hope you can hear me right now. You've been working hard, George, possibly helping out your son. So George is reminding everyone to hit the like button. Oh, Daniel, sticking up for Urban. I think there's probably a comment before that about Saban running Urban out of Florida. That whole that's a bit ridiculous. It is funny that Urban then faced Saban in the playoff and won the game. The whole end of Urban Meyer's it's if I wanted to get clicks, that's easy to make fun of, but I don't necessarily. We are here to get to the truth and be reasonable. And that Urban Meyer was run off by anyone. I think Urban Meyer's pretty much shown that he can win with whatever program anywhere. So I don't think anybody runs off Urban Meyer. That's like saying the whole Big Ten ran off Nick Saban because he was marginal at Michigan State. Urban Meyer losing one SEC championship game and going 12-1, I don't think is getting run off. And he had the number one class in the country his last season. Anyway, Gary, Mark, right now, telling facts. That's nice to hear. Thank you, Gary. Richt, as Georgia head coach, he did not start at third base. He did not. And Georgia wasn't bad. They accumulated a lot of talent. Georgia and LSU in the 90s were just like sleepwalking through the 90s. Georgia and LSU. And not that it matters that I was there covering the SEC at the time, because you can cover it from 2,000 miles away like I do now. But I was at the games, and you do get to talk to a lot of people, newspaper guys and people that work in the athletic departments and that sort of thing. But just being around it at the time, LSU and Georgia, man, they were stockpiled with talent. They were just poorly coached. Mostly that was the problem throughout the 90s, in just average programs. To look at Georgia's and LSU's, I'm not going to do it. I was about to do it. Go through their records starting in the late 80s. John makes a comment here that could be true. I think sometimes we get hung up on personality, and when I say looks, I'm not talking about necessarily attractiveness, but just a look. Marcus Freeman's hip. He's young. He connects to the players. That's all great. He'll probably succeed at Notre Dame because it's tough to fail there. He'll probably succeed. But it just looks a contrast. Brian Kelly kind of does some dumb things, especially after LSU. Kind of this stiff, kind of, awkward at times kind of guy. Not real endearing, fun-loving, at least doesn't appear to be that kind of guy. And then they transition Notre Dame to Marcus Freeman, who's cool, and the players like him. And, they just upgraded. We'll see. Tony's letting us know that Mark Richt inherited Jim Donnan's best recruiting class. That may be. I can't verify that, but that may be. But that's one recruiting class. And he inherited 10 years of mediocrity. A notch above mediocrity, going to Peach Bowls. when the Peach Bowl was not a New Year's Six game. The Peach Bowl was the Liberty Bowl. Christopher, so Nick Saban was not the head coach at Kent State. He was at Toledo. But yeah, Nick Saban is a proud, one of the under the radar legacies of college football is right here. It's ironic. It's a paradox. It's rather confusing yet intriguing that Kent State has brought to campus some of the greatest names in the history of college football, but the Kent State football team itself has sucked forever. Just one of the worst football programs in college football history. But Nick Saban, Lou Holtz, Jack Lambert, the defensive lineman for the Steelers, Harrison. I'm drawing a blank on his first name. Anyway, that scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Antonio Gates, Julian Edelman, Josh Cribbs, on and on and on. Don James, just phenomenal coaches and players have gone through Kent State. Just waves of Hall of Fame caliber. But the program has sucked forever. Horrible. Anyway, back to the SEC. Gary, Nick Saban he elevated them for 1 year. Yeah, they were 9-2 the year that he left, but he did a lot of 6 and 5s at Michigan State. Gary sums it up right there. BK is an ass. I don't necessarily know that that's the case, but I've heard that enough from enough people. I don't think we personally interact with the man, do we? So I'm not going to call him that. But he upgraded Notre Dame, which was way down when he took it over. Yeah, they were a 7-6 program. Daniel predicts that Marcus Freeman will take Notre Dame where Brian Kelly could not, and he may. That would simply be a national championship because Brian Kelly did everything else. Consistently finished in the top 5 to 10 in the country, made a couple playoffs, made another national championship game. Yes, Notre Dame is a top 3 program of all time. That's arguable. They're in that range, top 3 to 6, but haven't been since Lou Holtz. They've been a top 30 program since Lou Holtz. But between Lou Holtz and Brian Kelly, Bob Davie, Ty Willingham, Charlie Weiss, not great. They've been Purdue for that. What was that? 20 years? Anybody else here? Mm-hmm. Christopher says, Mark thinks I'm a moron. No, I don't. I don't. When I first looked at that, I thought it said Mormon. I was going to say, I've not guessed anybody's religious affiliation. Kind of said that, Daniel. Yeah, ESPN hires whoever, don't they? They will hire anybody. All right. Don't see any super chats, so we will go to the phone line. Give me a second here. Talk amongst yourselves, but that's The SEC list, will we do a top 10 or top 25 national list? We should. That's what I'm here for. So we will probably attack that here soon. And we're going to get to player rankings as well. We are going to do that as well. Allow me one quick text. All right, now we're going back to business. Okay, folks, we're up and running. 860-499-3332. I will get the call-in number to the screen in just a second. 860-499-3332. I not only got new glasses, and thank you everyone for the fine compliments, but I also got new contacts, and I got that blended bifocal. I'm trying that out, and it seems to be working okay. It doesn't solve everything. When you start to not be able to see, you just can't see anyway. So no prescription's going to be able to fix everything. Like I've been constantly like, I can see that far away, but I can't see this far away. Now I can see this far away, but I can't see that far away. And I definitely can't see, you know, it just gets crazy once you get to be my age with like, I can't read this label. I can read that fine. So can I look at this label out? Go to restaurants and look at menus. And I'm like, I got my contacts in. If I don't have my contacts in, I can see, but I can't drive. But I got the contacts with the blended bifocal, just like the glasses are the same thing. And it's very, very slight. So it seems to be working okay. And so I just went ahead and ordered the contacts and said, hey, these are working, this trial pair. Again, 860-499-3332 here at the Voice of College Football. And certainly appreciate everyone being here today on a fine Sunday. Gary says, my middle-aged audience can relate to can't see anymore. I know, it's just a sad state of affairs. And I got to say that my middle-aged audience, so it kind of strikes me funny that actually from 25 to 34, 34 to 45, 45 to 54, and then the next one above that, they're all about the same in percentage. So I don't have like one age group that watches the most. Everything from 25 years and up. And sorry, Cheryl, you're somewhat in the minority, like 96% to 4. I'm not necessarily attracting the babes. Or whatever it is, 94 to 6 or something like that. It's just me, Tim, 79. Would you rather be blind or deaf? I don't want to get into that question. We are Penn State 76. Mark, would you love to see your all-time Big Ten, SEC, Pac-12 teams with breakdown of who made it and who just missed the cut? Yeah, that would be something else, huh? Don't really see us getting to that. Unfortunately, we are Penn State. That's the kind of stuff I would love to dive into. Would love to dive into that historical stuff, but people don't watch it. But that would be phenomenal. So I got to focus on who are the top 10 quarterbacks this year, the top 10 offensive linemen. We're going to get to that next. Player rankings are next. and schedules. Yeah, Vandy Dandy, speak for yourselves. I got the type mindset that I think I'm going to live to be about 108. John says, the more you go past the Bowl Alliance, the less the results mean. I think he means back in history. People were clamoring for the call-in lines and nobody's calling. You guys are on fire. I think we got past this lull in the college football offseason, and now people are fired up again. And we got about 100 people on the line, so it's good to have everybody here. I am broadcasting this, streaming this, I guess is the more correct term, on all the SEC channels. Florida, Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, the SEC channel. So I don't know how many people are watching on each one. We had a tremendous response. Unfortunately, it was unfortunate for the reasons why we had a tremendous response yesterday when the news broke concerning Dwayne Haskins. And I just thought it was phenomenal to see the outpouring of support and sentiment that came from all of you yesterday. But a lot of people jumped on board to express their condolences for Dwayne Haskins, unfortunately, as a young man of 24, married and at least one child, had a family, had children. Just a sad, sad day in college football and in humanity. And I think that brings to light, I'll say this before I take this call, like I stated several times yesterday, yes, that was all about Dwayne Haskins and that precious life that was lost. And again, it becomes even more tragic when he's married and has children. But on top of that, it also underlines that this is happening across the world every day. There are 24-year-olds losing their lives every day for different reasons. All right, to happier times. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? I am doing great, and give me 2 seconds to put you, I think you're in good shape. Yeah, fire away. I always have to make that transition on the first phone call to get you on the line. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So I got a question for you regarding SEC coaches. So I heard you talk about specifically these two, Jimbo Fisher and Brian Kelly, and Jimbo Fisher's situation being win now. No, it's all you've had your time to get your program. You've had your time to, I guess, sort of establish your domain there. So it's time to start earning that enormous paycheck that Texas A&M is giving you. Like you got Jimbo Fisher over here, and then you got Brian Kelly, a guy who exceeded a lot of pretty much I think everyone's expectations at Notre Dame, and then sort of did a jump from one major program to another, which is something you basically never see. In your opinion, do you think either of these two will win a national title in the next 5 years?
If I had to bet and you gave me both of them, I would say I'll take it. If you gave me one of them, and I don't even know which one because it's difficult to differentiate for me right now, to differentiate which one should have a better chance of ascending, I would bet against if I was only given one of them. So Jimbo's done it, right?
Right.
But I'm not, as you well know, since we've been talking college football for a long, long time, back and forth, you and I, that I'm not one of these, okay, well, he's done it, so he's better than Brian Kelly. I obviously didn't rank him ahead of Brian because I just think that national championship, he did everything he could do in credit, and it was won. It was earned. But those were very favorable circumstances that he does not enjoy now.
One of which he dodged Alabama in the year he won it. I just have to throw that out there.
Yeah, you're right. And that's not his fault, but yeah, if Alabama shows up at that game, shoot, Auburn showed up at the game and he had a big favorite. You know, he was a 10 or 12 point favorite, and they were, I'm not going to say,
and Auburn
lucky.
should have won. They completely threw the game away at the end.
They did. So, and considering his quarterback situation right now, I'm not, he doesn't have a CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. His quarterback situation's kind of unless this Haynes King shows us that he's the next coming. I don't know.
It's pretty peculiar. I mean, how do you beat Alabama and then lose? Well, I guess it wasn't then. I think they had already lost 2 games at that point. But how do you finally have that breakthrough season that you've been waiting for, and then lose 4 games, not even be in conversation to win the division?
Yeah.
That's pretty peculiar.
And he's an
offensive guy. And then the reason I throw Brian Kelly into this mix.
Yeah. And I was just going to say,
Brian Kelly into this mix is
sure.
Okay.
I was just going to say Fisher's an offensive guy. We keep stopping and starting.
Right.
I was just going to say Fisher's an offensive guy. And, I saw most of those letdowns, most of those losses, and the Ole Miss one in particular. Ole Miss has upgraded its defense significantly, but they're not going to be confused with the Georgia defense or the 85 Bears. And they couldn't score. They couldn't do anything. They scored like 6 points in that game against Ole Miss. They lost to Mississippi State. They got run all over the field by Arkansas. Like this wasn't like they turned in Ohio State 11-1 season under Urban Meyer, and one game was like, how did that happen against Purdue? They did that 4 times.
So in our conversation a couple of nights ago, you had my comment up there for like, that seems like 10 minutes or so, where I just immediately listed Saban, Smart, and Fisher. And then, but I got on and talked to you, and I kind of walked back Fisher because my honest feelings is that Brian Kelly's a better coach. He just doesn't have the trophy. But I think that's largely due to where they were. Fisher was in the ACC, which I don't think the ACC was nearly as bad in 13 as it is now, but it still wasn't the SEC or the Big Ten.
No.
Brian Kelly and Fisher also basically had the whole state of Florida to play around with. Miami was garbage, and Florida, Urban Meyer, with all due respect to his coaching ability, he left that program in a lot of kind of off the field shambles. So Fisher was in a good position. And then, as you said, a lot of things kind of went its way in that season. I've maintained, and I've always maintained, Brian Kelly at Notre Dame no one at Notre Dame has anything going for them other than this weird, like, royalty spin on the brand of Notre Dame that, people just don't want to let go. I mean, Notre Dame is in a cold climate. It's in a highly like religious kind of strict overtones that players are going to have to accept, and that a lot of them don't want to. It's very high academic, and they're not in a conference. The players, a lot of players want to have the SEC kind of branding behind them, or they want to go play for the Big Ten. And Notre Dame has none of that. So I think what Brian Kelly did at Notre Dame was as much as any coach his caliber, which I think is very, very high, could do. So then if you take a guy like that and you stick him at a place with like LSU, which has the entire state of Louisiana to itself, talent-wise, no one ever talks about Louisiana. Do you notice that? Everyone talks about the Big Four, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and California. No, Louisiana is like 5 or 6.
I do.
It's right there. And
I've said that many times. Per capita, I think it's the best. I've seen ratios that show it's the best per capita.
I thought I would have probably guessed Georgia was the best because they're a lower population, but they produce so many, good big NFL stars. But I mean, tomato tomato there. But anyway, you take a coach like that and you stick him at LSU with all these natural resources and advantages, and I'll be like, oh shit, of course this guy's going to be able to win it all. If you give me 5 years, give him 5 years to do it. But then I throw in the the catch that he's playing in the SEC West at the same time as Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher and Lane Kiffin, who's always troublesome. And then these rising stars, well, I guess Lane Kiffin might be considered a rising star by some, but you also got Sam Pittman. And then in order to even win the SEC, you probably have to go through Kirby Smart. So there's this, it almost sounds like he went from a place that had a bunch of self-imposed obstacles like Notre Dame does, and he went to a place that should be a better location and a better, easier path to succeed. And actually he has the same, if not more obstacles than he did where he was.
Yeah. Just like Jimbo. And Jimbo lost to Mississippi State last year. So throw them in there too. That shouldn't happen. Yeah. If he's going to win a national championship and he's losing to the likes of Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Mississippi State, wow. But I guess Brian Kelly's also looking at, besides the paychecks that come in every 2 weeks, he's looking at, well, Nick Saban won a national championship. Les Miles won a national championship, got to another national championship game. Ed Ogeron won a national championship. Like, it can be, this is one of the few places it can be done. So if I'm that good, I should be able to do it there too.
Mm-hmm. So someone that other night made the most ridiculous, like face palm comment that is like, well, if we're going to talk about Jimbo Fisher, then let's talk about Gene Chizik. He won a national title. And I was, my head was like through the desk I was sitting at. Gene Chizik had a 3-9 season after he won a national title. The two are not remotely comparable.
No.
But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think if you'd have 5 years, we got to go ahead and say Saban's going to win at least one of those. So to me, that's basically 4 years to play around with for one of those two to get it. And I think it's going to be, I don't know, intriguing. I'm very interested to see what Brian Kelly can do once he gets off the dance floor and, onto the field.
Yeah, so Jimbo now looks at LSU probably thinking, if he's honest with himself, okay, well, they were down for a few years. I didn't necessarily take advantage of that. They're not going to be down like that. Yeah, it's almost an arms race. Well, it is an arms race, but it's a race to the top between Brian Kelly and Jimbo to see, okay, out of those two, who's going to succeed? Because they're both at what I stated a few minutes ago, very similar type programs that will go to any length to win. They will do whatever is needed. And they're both in the most desperate place in terms of being desperate to win and having those resources and wanting it so bad and being faced with that daunting conference that, yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see, is Brian Kelly going to get there first, or is Jimbo Fisher, or either one of them?
Where did that come from with Texas A&M, by the way? Because you and I both know that's not Texas A&M's program aspiring to be the top on top of the mountain. No, they were second place in their own state forever.
Yeah,
and it wasn't really that much different after they joined the SEC. I mean, they had Johnny Manziel, but so it was a couple flashes here and there, but they were never, I guess, playoff. No one was thinking of them as a playoff team. Like, where do you think that came from? That they all of a sudden became a program that's willing to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, in order to win a national title?
Well, I think you touched on some of it. So you're right. For anybody that's not been watching college football for long, Texas A&M's not They're not Alabama, LSU. They're not Georgia. They're not Ohio State. They're talked in that realm now by some because of all this periphery stuff that's not going out on the field, but should be affecting the field at some point. But yeah, they haven't won a conference championship since '98. And Texas A&M, for the entirety of me watching college football, I expected to be 8-4. They might be in the top 25, 7-5. That's who they are. They're and not given much attention. But I think either they made the move to the SEC wanting to be something different, or once they made that commitment because the dollar signs were thrown in their face and the opportunity to make even more money, that they thought, why can't we be this? And now we can break free from Texas and break free from that shadow. And now we're in a better conference than Texas. We can be better than Texas. And by extension now, and maybe the Johnny Manziel year kind of showed, hey, we went to Tuscaloosa, beat Alabama. Maybe we can be this. We've got all these resources. Why don't we try to be this?
I think more important than anything is that they got outside of Texas's shadow.
Yeah.
I think that's how I think joining the SEC is the single most important factor that helped them recruit better than they ever could before.
Absolutely.
Ironically, the exact opposite happened to a program called Nebraska, because I'm sure you all know that Nebraska's time, their reign during the 90s was all on the backs of a very powerful recruiting base in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
Well, that all evaporated once they left the Big 12, and this is what the result is.
Well, what you bring up is interesting because Texas A&M presides exactly where they need to for players. They're there. So once they attach the SEC with where their location rests, that was perfect. Where Nebraska disconnected, they went to a tougher conference and disconnected from their talent base that was already 1,000 miles away or whatever the distance. So they went the opposite direction.
And I sort of think even a similar thing, yet another thing that could be working against Notre Dame with this weird sort of connection they want to have with the ACC. Notre Dame is right in the middle of Big Ten territory. I've always thought of Notre Dame as a Big Ten school that just doesn't have a logo, sort of. Like I think it would benefit them immensely if they had joined the Big Ten when they had an opportunity to. Because, I mean, you know, the Big Ten often, well, maybe not often, but, you know, a significant number of years, the Big Ten even out-earns the SEC sometimes in revenue. Both conferences, by the way, every one of their schools shatter what Notre Dame does with their pitiful little NBC deal. They always try to hoist that up, saying that's what makes them special. That's why they get to be independent, because they get their own TV contract. And, you know, no one cares anymore, because the kind of money ESPN and Fox are throwing around for college football is way beyond what it was back when that kind of stuff mattered. But anyway, if they were to be in the Big Ten, I think that could at least solve one of their problems, which is that it's difficult to recruit there. A lot of people don't realize just how important a conference is to, you know, some players within that region of the country, or whichever region that they're in.
Yeah, so I think you speak the truth. I think maybe you're overestimating it slightly because of where you're located. I think it means more to players in the South and the SEC, and then probably the next attachment would be the Big Ten, but that doesn't match the SEC, and I don't think there's as much of a attachment for the other three than the SEC, than the Big Ten. But it's there. And
well,
Yeah. Notre Dame, this NBC. I got to think that kind of the way I approach my college football Saturdays is typical to other fans, that I often forget that Notre Dame's playing on NBC. I'm so locked into, I'm going to go through the ESPN schedule. Who's playing? Okay, who's the ABC game tonight? Okay, CBS, but what's the SEC on CBS? Okay, all the different Fox outlets, they've got their Big 10 and Big 12 contracts. Who are they? And all the various SEC, ACC, all that. And I often, all of a sudden, I'll see a Notre Dame score in the second quarter and be like, oh, yeah, Notre Dame's playing like a pretty good game. They're playing North Carolina. Oh, forgot about that. They're just on this island of a network that doesn't do anything else with college football. Nothing. NBC. There's just this isolated game that just drops out of nowhere, drops out of the sky right in the middle of their Saturday programming schedule before or after some kind of random golf tournament or something. It's just, yeah, it does not help them anymore.
So anyway, that's all I got. I enjoyed your list. I think it's correct. And, I don't got any problems with it.
Well, the tough part's going to be to make that a top 10 or a top 25, because the SEC is going to factor heavily into that for sure.
Yeah, that'll be a fun video if you decide to make it. I definitely watch.
All right, sir.
But anyway, man. All right.
I appreciate the call.
Let someone else get on. See ya.
All right. Our next, there was a call coming in. So the phone lines are open. We did have a call there that is no longer there. So you no longer have to wait. So please call in 860-499. I apologize for not posting the number. We'll do that right now. There we go. It's on the ticker at the bottom of the screen. 860-499-3332. Tim is telling us that the Big Ten excluded the Irish for years. Fritz Chrysler at Michigan, yes, had a vendetta that went on for decades. Religious bigotry, yes. The Protestants against the Catholics did not help things. I would think that to hold those vendettas in 2022 hopefully is not holding up that connection. But not that it can't be changed, but Notre Dame has made it's not a marriage with the ACC, because football is football and football's king. But football's king, but Notre Dame does not want to play in the ACC, but they'll play 5 or 6. Sometimes it's been 6 ACC teams. So they've relegated themselves to a schedule that used to allow for Michigan State, Purdue, and now they've relegated themselves to some kind of rotation that, sure, it involves Clemson and Florida State and Miami, but it also is weighed down by Virginia, Duke, Syracuse, Wake Forest. Wake Forest is a really good football team and a football program, thanks to Dave Clawson, but it doesn't move the needle. Like Notre Dame playing Wake Forest, nobody cares. Notre Dame beat Georgia Tech last year 55-0. And I know that they can't play Oklahoma every week, but Notre Dame, that was just, I don't know what their incentive was or what the financial conditions were concerning all the other sports and how much that helped them. It obviously helped them to join the ACC in the other sports because they made that move. And I don't know if there was scheduling difficulty in all the other sports, that it was tough to make a field hockey schedule because we're not tied to a conference. So let's join the ACC. I'm sure women's basketball was helped, and men's basketball to a degree, although the men's basketball team, and I'm so separated from college basketball, I'm not speaking intelligently on this, but I did follow the sport and cover the sport for a long time. And Notre Dame used to, in a similar fashion to football, play a very intriguing, interesting, and high-profile national basketball schedule. UCLA and Marquette, DePaul, Michigan, Michigan State, et cetera, et cetera. In basketball, Purdue, their basketball schedule, but now they play in the ACC. I've had people come on here and actually argue with me, callers, that Notre Dame is in the ACC. Of course, they're not in the ACC. They can win every game, and they cannot win the ACC championship. All right. Matthew Rowley's comment, 860, why are you in Connecticut? Because I got paid to be here for a long time, for 19 years. But yeah, those numbers are, that number is not my number. That number can be anything. They can make numbers whatever they want. They can make numbers whatever they want. I had a number before that, and I don't even know what the area code was. So I could have selected anything. Hey, Cyber, Notre Dame independent. And that's a big 100. So Cyber Notre Dame wants to be independent. Okay, Michael, understand that men's college basketball is somewhat dying. It's nothing close to what it was 25 years ago on the national sports landscape. And it's nothing close to football. Nothing close to football. Still to be taken into consideration when making conference affiliation decisions. But football is here, and men's basketball is here, and everything else is insignificant. I don't mean that people are insignificant. Some people take offense when I say something's insignificant. Talking about from a business standpoint, insignificant. Football, a little bit men's basketball, football. Now, if you're a Duke, there's a different consideration there, but nobody's questioning their conference affiliation. They're in the ACC. They're staying in the ACC. They've been in the ACC since day one of 1953. Sad Buckeye, I can call again to discuss ties. Sad Buckeye, are you the tie guy? We can have a conversation about ties, and many people are entertained by that. It gave me a headache, but yeah, exploring with Ben. I think exploring with Ben, he can read my vibe, my attitude, my body language. He can read it. Exploring with Ben has been watching diligently long enough to understand the show's about to end. Show's about to end. So he's like, somebody call in, and seems no one is on the line. Nobody's on the line. I'd be taking the calls. Nobody's on the line. John says he's been on hold for 10 minutes. You must be calling the wrong number. There are no calls coming in right now. 860-499-3332. 0 calls. Wish I could spin my camera and show you my monitor. A-Rad is asking, aside from Brian Harsin, what coach in the SEC has to prove himself this year to extend its contract? Well, Saban, Smart, Jimbo, they are what they are. They're there. The first two guys have completely proven themselves. Jimbo has not, but he's making way too much money, and he's recruiting out of his mind, so he's fine. Even if they go 7-5, people are going to bellyache and complain and throw tomatoes at him, but he's fine. He's there. Kiffin had a great first year, really had 2 really good years, even though the record wasn't great his first year. Kiffin's knocking it out of the park. Leach is I read an article recently on Mike Leach's contract, and it's kind of hanging in the balance. They need to extend Mike Leach. So after 3-7 and 7-6, Mississippi State doesn't necessarily give the vibe of being or have the track record of being cutthroat or having that high of expectations, but Mike Leach being Mike Leach, and Mike Leach possibly, if this continues, this contract impasse or whatever's going on right now that has his contract just kind of hanging out there. He only has 1 year left on his contract, I believe, this season. But Josh Heupel's in a good place. Now, things can change very quickly in college football. We can give you a million examples of guys that, okay, they took a job, they upgraded. We're doing great. We're doing okay. We're upgrading. And then they had a bump in the road, and then a couple things in the offseason didn't look, boop, gone. Or something in the off, I can't predict who's going to pull a rich rod, off the field. But in terms of Brian Harsin, yes. I don't know what he needs to do this year. I got to think he's okay if he wins 7 or 8 games. But, man, that's going to be tough to do. Auburn doesn't have a really good team. Sure, they got talent. They're Auburn. They've recruited to a certain degree, but they're really not. They've got holes on that team all over the place. They don't know who's going to catch the ball. The offensive line's been bad. The defense has been exceptional at times in the last 5 years, but it's probably at its worst point. So Exploring with Ben says, maybe my system is having issues. John is on hold again, he says. So I got 0 calls. Well, Reasonable Gump called in, so we know that worked. The only thing I could say is I will shut it down and restart it. That's what I'll do. So we are ending it here, and we are going to restart. And there is plenty of money in the account, so we don't have that issue. So let's see.
Via web interface.
Okay. We should be good to go. Give it another shot. Everything looks fine. Everything looked fine before. And of course, Reasonable Gump called in, so I don't know what the issue is. So we've had a number of people call in and say it hangs up on me. Well, I was just transitioning. So try it again. We should be set up. We should be ready to roll. There we go. Oh, we got calls coming in. It's a good thing. It's a good day here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you for your persistence, whoever's on the line. What's going on today?
What's up, Mark?
I'm good. What's going on?
Hey, I just wanted to call in and talk about Dwayne Haskins a little bit.
All right. Who am I talking to?
This is Daniel.
Daniel. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because he passed away tragically. So I just wanted to talk about the great moments he had a little bit. The Maryland game, to be specific. I mean, he left his heart on the field that day.
I mean, the defense gave us nothing. He's scoring every time he touches the ball. The Penn State comeback.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, without Dwayne that year, we probably have like 4 or 5 losses. Who knows?
Yeah, he had an exceptional season. There's no doubt about that. When I think of Dwayne Haskins, first and foremost, I go to the Michigan game of 2017, and that was, of course, really the start of his emergence.
That's another thing. Michigan was having a great year that year in 2018. I actually thought we were going to lose that game. The way Dwayne lit Michigan up that game, goodness gracious, 62 points.
Oh, you're talking about the 2018 game. I'm talking about the 2017 game.
Oh, yeah, his debut. Yeah, he rescued that game. Yeah. That's all I really wanted to say. I just wanted to talk about Dwayne Haskins a little bit.
Well, I appreciate it, Daniel. Was there anything you wanted to hear out of me? I kind of gave it my all yesterday.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Well, Daniel, we appreciate the comments in the live chat from you. As you can see, I read many. And keep watching. Appreciate you being here.
Look, I love college football, and I appreciate you doing all this work. I watched most of the videos, so.
Well, thanks for that, Daniel.
All right, Mark.
We'll be looking for your comments. Appreciate you being here. Have a good one.
Yep.
All right. We have cleaned up our phone issues, apparently. Just sometimes you got to reset it. We've all learned that, and I certainly used to see that at ESPN all the time. We'd bring in the big engineers, and half the time they just unplugged everything and plugged it back in, and that works like 95% of the time. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, what's up, Mark? I heard I got my privileges back.
You got
Ben told me I'm okay to call.
Okay.
This is Tim.
Hey, Tim. What's going on?
I'm just calling.
Yes.
I'm calling to tell everyone that they missed it. And I'm doing my air quotes right now. The USC insider let everybody know that it was most likely that Connor Lee was going to go to Oregon. So they missed out on that chat between Eric and me in the Discord, if they're not on the Discord. But I called about 3 days ago, and I'm getting worried. Like Eric said in the Discord before, they got some recruiters up there right now. And is it Iuli? How do you say the other guy they got, the big O lineman that Oregon got? They got 2 guys up there of keep that offensive line going. Even though Mario's gone, seems like they're really going to keep the O line going.
Yeah.
Dave Iuli. I forgot that.
Yeah, it's Iuli.
Definitely don't know how to spell it.
IULI. Iuli. And Josh Connerly going to Oregon. So Dan Lanning off to a good start.
Yeah, I actually didn't even mean to call. I was just checking to see if it was working, but I just called in. But I thought, since I'm here, and I might as well tip my hat to the Ducks, begrudgingly, and the fact that, again, I did. Eric tried to give me some stick in the Discord, but I was quick to remind him. If you looked up a little bit during our discussion, I said like 3 or 4 days before, I'm like, I was really confident because we had the final official visit, but when he and his dad show up midweek, up there in Eugene, I'm like, oh, here we go. It's another, Sean Jackson to Cal situation. Or last minute, everyone's thinking it's going one way, and then the last second just gets swept. Or even DeAnthony Thomas, who went up to the Ducks. We all thought we had that for sure, and next thing we know, he's a Duck. So, good job, Ducks. Scoring this Ben's already excited in the chat. Throwing his #5-star. But yeah, just thought I'd call in. Yeah. So where should I have known what time? I know last night you said that you were going to have the call-in show today. I keep missing them. I keep showing up like an hour and a half late because I'm not sure when we're starting.
Yeah, I don't either. I need to set up See, my problem is I've already got 10 obligations every week. So my 10 obligations are, we got 9 live streams with all the teams you already know. I won't run them down, but so those are 9 live stream obligations that I have. And then I record the Michigan podcast with Steve Days every Tuesday. So those are 10 time slots that are already filled. Because what I'm getting to is, you're right, I need to have a live stream schedule to say, and so if everybody knows I'm on Sunday night at 8, Monday night at 9, and and I should probably do it at different times of the day, sometimes at noon, sometimes late night, and to catch everyone as best as possible. But I've just not been able to commit to a schedule. And that's what I should have a schedule, but everybody seems to be very good about hopefully keeping up as much as possible. The mistake I made today was I put a schedule early this morning on the community page on YouTube, but I forgot to set up the link. And so that notification didn't go out until like 20 minutes before I started. But yes, I need to commit to a schedule, but I've already got 10 live streams I do every week that I'm committed to. So it's just kind of hard from that standpoint.
No, I'm not complaining. I know what you do. I see the juggling act that you're a one-man band doing it all. It's just, I think, definitely for me at least, with my hectic schedule, if I knew when, I can tell you this, Mark, I would be here every time, especially on weekends, Saturday and Sunday. You would be guaranteed, sure. All those fanatics, we would definitely be here. It's just, if I'm not here, I'm pretty much telling you, I just didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Again, I love listening to the show, but I have just as much fun in the chat and everything and keeping on track of everything. So, I was joking about it before, but I mean it. I'm going to know more about Miami, West Virginia, Nebraska going into the season than any preseason magazine I've ever watched or read throughout all the years. I'm really going to enjoy this college football season because, again, I love USC. I'm an alum, and I breathe and bleed Cardinal and gold. But I love college football too, and so just being here around other fans, there's just nothing like it. Just nothing like it.
So, Tim, if we were going to add a live stream, the next one that we add, which one would you add?
For a particular team?
Yes.
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't think we had a lot of Trojans in here for a while, but I've been scanning. I do try to keep a pulse on it, and I can't remember. It was like the last one we did. I was trying to get just people just do like I'm a teacher. We did when we had online learning. I used to have a waterfall thing, right? So all the kids wouldn't, copy answers. So I'd have them write their thing into the chat and then just hit it all at the same time. And I was trying to get them to the people in the chat to put their team in and all of a sudden hit it so we could see, who's represented, what teams are represented in the chat, and went over like a Led Zeppelin, but it's still, we got some people coming through, and I'm going to try that again some other time. But
Tim,
I don't know.
You are so nice. I just asked the stupidest question of the day. I just asked a USC fan, when we don't have a USC show, what team we should add for a live stream. So I just asked the stupidest question imaginable, and you just took it with grace. You could have said, Mark, what do you think I'm going to say? USC. So our guy, Matt Zemek.
We don't deserve it.
You probably see our conversations we have with Matt Zemek. Now, he would be willing to do a live stream if we can find a sponsor. So we have that in the works, but we would have to find a sponsor for our live stream if we pick up USC. So hopefully we can do that. I would love to do, there's only so many hours in a day, but I'd like to do Clemson and Florida and on down the line. I'll do anybody.
Yeah, they're out there. I mean, I really enjoy the vibe of the Miami chat. I like the guys, both dudes you have on there, and then actually all three that you have on there. I really enjoy that. But right now, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of the Trojans in the chat. Like there was for a while. There was a pretty good representation. Either they're lurking or what. But Eric, they're number one for now, dude. Look,
it's kind of funny.
This, Eric.
It's kind of funny how fan bases come and go on my channel. So right now, if I throw out Ohio State and Michigan, and that's been the case for a long time, I think pretty much Ohio State and Michigan are my two biggest fan bases. And actually, I think Michigan's number one. Miami, I've kind of moved them to their own channel. Miami used to help me out considerably here, but I've kind of moved them just to their own channel, and I don't talk a whole lot of Miami right here. But USC, man, when I don't know if you saw the conversation yesterday, people were making comments about my subscribers, and then I went through this whole thing of, it was near the end of our Florida State watch party, and I was going through how many subscribers I had each year, which is kind of funny because YouTube gives you every analytic you would ever want. And after doing this for 1 year, I only had 8 subs. And after doing this for 2 full years, I only had 17 subs. So this took a long time to build up. But when I used to, even when nobody was watching me, when I would send out USC videos, I used to get a ton of views from USC videos.
Yeah, we're out there. It's scattered. The problem, LA is a very transient area. And even amongst our fans, again, I'm doing air quotes, you can't see it. USC only has about, I would say probably 40,000. Now, last year, I know it was tragic. People were just fed up last year. People were just done. You know, the administration quit on the team quit on the team, the fans for the first time truly, even the diehards, I'm talking about 40K, which I know is nothing compared to some other, schools that sell out every year. But you can guarantee 40,000, SC fans, and usually about, 60,000 at the games is average over the years. Even back in the McKay years, my dad said it was still pretty bad. The only fan base in LA that really will show up day in, day out, record throw out the window, are the Dodger fans. Dodger fans year in, year out, when they're winning World Series or if they're at the bottom, they're going to show up. But as far as UCLA, USC, even Lakers to a degree, Kings fans, if they're not winning, the people aren't showing up. But I'd like to see it eventually. I'm pretty sure once things get rolling at USC, which I'm hoping they're going to, there's only one direction to go right now. I think that you might see the channel jump. I've been trying to spread it amongst my Trojan fans. I've been giving it out your information.
I appreciate that.
It's hard because I tell them they don't know when to come view it. So I hit them up. I text them, say, hey, he's doing a live stream right now. They're like, I can't. I'm busy. Blah blah. So
yeah,
I'm trying, but yeah, I think that we need better representation from the Trojans in the live chat, at least to show some interest. That's what I mean about doing. I would love to know. Like right now, we have 40 people watching. I got a good idea, of many people. There's a lot of people in the chat that just lurk. You know what I mean? We have 40 people watching, and they're not really joining in. They should jump into the chat. Everyone in the chat's really good people, and they'd have a good time jumping in. Then we would know, who's actually watching.
See, it's funny because
all right, I'm gonna let you go. I'm talking. I'm babbling now.
No, that's okay,
but,
Tim.
Good job, Doc.
I'll take these other calls here, but it's funny because actually I've got this simulcasted on other channels, so we've got 56 watching total. So there must be 40 on the main channel. I just see the total count here. All right, Tim.
Wait, before I go, Eric.
Yep.
Eric, I just want to reach out to you, Eric, and let you know, congratulations on winning the recruiting championship in April. We'll talk in December. All right, guys, take care.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. All right. More calls here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you for calling. Who's on the line?
Hi, yeah, this is Adam Tuscaloosa.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, what's going on, man? First off, I want to give major props to your show. It's like I need it. It's my high in the off season. You're a really great talk show host and longtime viewer. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I kind of have a fun one for you. Nothing to dive in too deep or ask, too many specific questions. First off, I guess this isn't the fun question. What are your personal opinions on the playoffs that we have currently in comparison to what we had with BCS before 2014 and what was 2026 supposedly expansion playoff? Just kind of where are your thoughts on the 4 teams and where it's going?
So before I answer that, I'm curious how long you've been watching.
Well, I'm 22 right now, and I'm from the South. I've been playing Pop Warner since I was 3 years old. I've been playing football since I had a pair of eyes. I've been watching football since I had a pair of eyes.
Okay. How long have you been watching our channel?
Oh, your channel? I would definitely say, well, about a year, last season, the last off season, so I guess a year going on now.
Okay. So you haven't heard me go off on this, apparently.
No, you know what? I don't think I have.
Okay.
And if I have, I definitely want it, and I would love a refresher.
I certainly have, but I will do it again because I appreciate the question here. So, all right, here's my thought on the playoff.
Yeah.
First of all, you asked about the BCS. The BCS was awful.
Yeah.
On so many levels. We could go through each year of the BCS from 1998 through 13, and the BCS rarely got it right. And not necessarily that the BCS always got it wrong, but there were always teams left out of the mix who had either just as good a resumes as the number 2 team, or in many cases had a better resume. The BCS always seemed to, for some reason, weigh in against the team that had the better argument, and that argument was typically head-to-head. So the BCS was awful. I think that the BCS was awful, screwed it up most of the time, and produced national championship games like Miami and Nebraska, where Nebraska just lost by 26 points on Thanksgiving weekend in its last game of the season, and they show up in a national championship game. And Oklahoma the next year, the next year showing up at a national, 2 years later, showing up at a national championship game after losing its conference title game by 4 touchdowns. Just on and on lunacy out of the BCS.
Right.
Okay. So as soon as we got to a playoff, people asked me, okay, Mark, do you like this playoff? Do you agree with it? And my first response was, well, the playoff affords 2 other worthy teams the opportunity to play for a national championship. So that's what's right about the playoff, just affords 2 other opportunities. What's wrong about it is the math doesn't work. We got 5 conferences, and depending on how you count, 10 conferences if you're an all-inclusive person in terms of the group of 5. So right out of the gate, I said, well, this is what's good about the playoff, but what's bad about the playoff is that we got 5 conferences. We got 4 spots. And this is not Major League Baseball or the NFL where just about everybody plays everyone and you can get a great grip on who the best teams are because they've proven it. We have a good idea who the best teams are because of just an eyeball test and because it's been cemented year after year after year. But I don't like the playoff because it's not a true playoff, because in any other sport, the playoff is determined by results on the field. This playoff is an invitational. It's not really a playoff. It's an invitational. These teams are selected by people. So we have given the entire authority of college football over to 13 people who go into a boardroom and come out and tell us who the 4 best teams are. And they have meandered around in explaining their determinations on how they came to that conclusion, and they change. And it's not that they've done a poor job. It's that they've been given an impossible job to accomplish. So
yeah,
I would have a playoff that at least had a number of spots that was as large as the number of conferences we have. So whether that's 8 or 12, I'll explain why I don't like 12.
Right.
But 8 or 16, I'll explain, the 12 doesn't work for one basic reason. And again, I would go to metrics and results on the field determining the playoff spots. I would make it a true playoff. The NFL doesn't ask people to decide who made the playoff. They have a system.
Yeah.
And we did a live stream last off season for like 4 hours, and I unveiled how I would run the playoff. And the first thing that needs to be fixed to get the playoff right is scheduling. Scheduling's bad. Scheduling doesn't make sense. The scheduling should be taken out of the hands of the schools, the individual schools, and that should be, there should be a formula. And I've kind of made up a formula that should be applied to non-conference scheduling and conference scheduling to make scheduling more equitable. Because when USC schedules Notre Dame and Alabama in a non-conference schedule that's killer, and Baylor has not scheduled a ranked team since 1997, there's something wrong with scheduling. These teams can schedule whoever they want. Well, that doesn't lead us to a place where we can fairly evaluate these teams when they're playing all sorts of crazy schedules, and some teams want to dodge everyone and other teams will take on the world. So we'd fix scheduling, and then we would have either an 8-team or 16-team playoff. The reason I don't like the 12-team, so the 12-team playoff format that was proposed last summer, I thought was as good as a 12-team playoff could be formulated, because it awarded conference championships. It incentivized conference championships. If you didn't want to win a conference championship, if you were Alabama sitting at 11-0 and you wanted to just sandbag and give up and throw in the towel and not get people hurt, then you were going to have to pay the price of playing a first-round game or traveling to an on-campus site in Wisconsin or Washington or somewhere. So I liked what they put together for a 12-team playoff, but here's the reason I wouldn't have buys. In my opinion, buys do not work in college football. So in the NFL, buys are reasonable, because if the Kansas City Chiefs win their division and they're 13-3, and the Pittsburgh Steelers win their division and they're 10-6, well, that's an easy differentiation to make, because they play such like schedules that the Kansas City Chiefs definitely earned the bye. But to have, again, 13 people in a boardroom determine who gets buys based on just their opinion, think about the advantage that the team that earns, or in this case is given a bye, has over the other team. So if you're familiar with the playoff proposal last summer, the 12-team playoff proposal, there would be 4 teams that would be given a bye, and then 5 through 12 would play the first round of the playoffs. Well, let's say both the 4 seed and the 5 seed are 12-1 and they're conference champions, but the committee had to determine that one of them is going to be the 4 seed and one's the 5 seed. Let's say the 4 seed's Oklahoma and the 5 seed's Oregon. Well, the 4 seed Oklahoma gets to sit at home, and let's say this is championship weekend, conference championship weekend,
right,
and Oklahoma just won the Big 12, and they got the 4 seed, and they get to sit at home, and Oregon won the Pac-12 championship, but they're the 5 seed, so they got to play a first-round game, and 3 weeks from now, and they got to play the 12 seed, and let's say the 12 seed is Penn State. So Oregon has to play Penn State. So there's no objective system that determined that Oklahoma should be 4 and Oregon should be 5. It was simply a committee said, we made Oklahoma 4 and we made Oregon 5. Oregon has to go play a game against Penn State. And the obvious advantage to having a bye is you can't lose. So that's point number 1. Oregon has to risk losing. Oklahoma gets the free win of sorts. Point number 2 is when you play a football game, you can get injured. So Oregon could lose its quarterback, its best left tackle, whatever. They could lose 1 player, 2 players, 3 players, probably going to lose somebody. More than that, they're going to get beat up playing Penn State. They're going to get beat up while Oklahoma gets to sit and rest. But the biggest issue, even beyond those, is that Oregon has to be dead focused on Penn State for 3 weeks preparing for this game. They can't afford to think, well, if we win this game, we're going to play Oklahoma, so we're going to prepare for them too. No, they better be locked and focused on preparing for Penn State. While Oklahoma can sit for 3 weeks and they can prepare for both of them. And on top of that, they can also watch both of them play 1 week before they have to play the winner and get to scout that game. Having a bye in the playoffs is an enormous advantage, an incredible advantage. So I don't like buys. So I would have an 8-team or a 16-team playoff. And the only other condition that I have yet to mention is something has to be determined that is formal about the group of 5. I don't like this vague, we include the group of 5, we consider them, but either kick them out or include them. Make a decision.
Yeah.
Kick them out, say, you don't play the same level of football, go play your own playoff, do whatever you want, we don't care. Or say, we are going to give you one spot. And you can count on that each year. The best record in the group of 5, or based on these tie-breaking metrics, the best record is going to get a playoff spot. And that's basically what I would do.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't say I would. I respectfully not disagree with your specifics. I'm a little less more geared towards an 8 or 12 team playoff. I know that's where we're going, obviously. I do, however, like the simplicity of the 4 and the prior to that with the BCS, which you're very right, got 100% wrong, and or they got wrong a lot, and you definitely know the specifics, and I don't as much. I just the one thing about the playoff that just kind of gets to me is just like, it'd be September 14th on a Saturday, week 2, and we got what Alabama and Texas are playing. You got LSU, Florida State, and the whole thing is, well, how many losses can this team take to get to the Final Four? And then you incorporate 8 teams, and it's like, well, I mean, now we have the possibility of 2 SEC teams getting in. We've seen it multiple times now. You continue to add. I'm an SEC homer, so I'm not gonna knock it, I guess. But for the good of the NCAA, for the entirety of the of college football, it's like, do you want to see? I mean, is it good for college football to have 3 SEC? I mean, do you want Alabama, Texas A&M, and Georgia in the playoffs and the top in the 18 playoff every single year? Or Alabama, Georgia, and the loser of the SEC West. It's just, I just feel like it kind of dampens the intensity of the regular season. But that's for another talk. One more question before I get off. I held you way too long. I really didn't mean to. Since 2014, we're talking to 14 playoff currently still. From 2014 to current, if you could fill a playoff bracket of your 4 teams from 2014, which was Ohio State winning the first year of the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
To, Georgia winning the 2021, who would you incorporate in your seeding 1 through 4, and who would you have 1 playing 4 and 2 and 3?
Oh, who are the 4 best teams that have played college football in the last 8 years?
Yeah, well, I would say, yeah, but best teams obviously, because they the teams that lost would probably not make your bracket. But who would be the most exciting? I guess
the most exciting
final.
Are we talking the most exciting or the best?
Like semifinal fight, semifinal like battles or whatever. Because we've had a real issue with the semifinals where it's like the 1 and the 4 and the 2 and the 3 play, and it's rare to get 1 game out of those 2 each year that's within 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's one of the best arguments on your side to keep it at 4 teams.
Yeah.
I would argue that it's not my responsibility to make football teams better. It's not my responsibility.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating saying, oh, we only need 2 teams because there's only 2 really great teams each year. There could definitely be 4. Some years there aren't 4 that are just on that bracket, or like that skill bracket for each individual year. But and that's not that. I don't want to ask that question like loaded up, saying, oh well, this is why we shouldn't have a playoff. I'm more so asking, like what teams that beat the other team by 30 would be a fun team to watch in 2014 to 2021. What 4 teams do you think would be a fun playoff bracket, I guess?
Well, the 2 best teams during that 8 years that immediately come to mind that would have to be in those 4 teams is 2019 LSU and 2020 Alabama.
Yeah.
And
Well,
their
you know, I mean,
and their
2014,
offensive
I would
juggernauts.
say, well, yeah, they were offensive juggernauts for sure. And I would incorporate 19 LSU, and I would also, of course, I would incorporate 20 Bama. I mean, I'm a Bama fan, but I don't want to sound biased. But I mean, even like I'm more so thinking like, you know, you got 2016, you had Bama and Clemson played a hell of a game. It came down to the last play. You had 2015 where like it came down to the last play. We had Alabama kicked an onside kick that could beat Clemson. You know,
Yep.
like there are some really good ones in there that if you look for each year, I mean, it'd probably still end up the team that won that would whichever team won the national championship. But you know, it does kind of, if you look each year and then you look semifinals. I mean, even Oklahoma in 2017 with Baker Mayfield, they went double overtime with Georgia, who was one play away from winning a national championship that year. Like there were some fun years, and I was just kind of asking, you know, aside from I guess 19 and 20 Bama or 19 LSU, 20 Bama, who would you put in there?
Well, I think the
And then season.
two other best teams are 21 Georgia and probably 18 Clemson. But man,
18 Clemson,
Deshaun
yeah.
Watson, what he pulled off for those 2 years against Alabama,
totally
losing the first one and winning the second one with down 14-0 in the first quarter, and what he pulled off, man, I would want him to be in that playoff. So I might opt for 16 Clemson.
Over what? Over 18 Clemson?
I think 18 Clemson was they were probably better, but the Deshaun Watson factor I would probably throw. You're going excitement over quality, so we can go with Deshaun Watson.
That's fair. That's fair. That is what I asked. I was more so asking as just like a casual viewer, who would you want to see in your 1 through 4 playoff over the last 8 years? So yeah, that's fair. And I would agree if we're talking excitement factor. I mean, I would go Deshaun just because Deshaun Watson and at Clemson was something to behold. You know, do you remember that hit he took? It was Reuben Foster. I think it was the game they won. I think it was 2016. It was 3rd and 10. You know, and he pulls the ball down, scrambles, makes a beautiful play, leaping for the first down marker, and he gets hit by middle linebacker Reuben Foster. You know, if he didn't have a drug problem, he'd be in the NFL for sure. You know, and he looks like a helicopter. You know, he spins all the way around. I could not put in 2016 Clemson, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. I thought it'd be a fun little question to ask. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate the call. Thanks for calling in, and call back anytime.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Let's take this call and wrap it up here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's John DeLon. Real quick, I just wanted to add on to something you said earlier about people arguing with you about Notre Dame being in the ACC. If you really think about it, that started popping up during the 2020 COVID year when they actually did play in the ACC.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's just uninformed casual fans that just have no clue what they're talking about. And, you know, I wouldn't waste too much time on that.
You're probably right. But I do think that some of the people, they technically know that Notre Dame is not in the ACC, but they still, I don't know how that can be argued, but I hear what you're saying. You're right. Some of them probably are just confused and they're not real hardcore fans, but some of them, I know that they technically know that Notre Dame cannot win an ACC championship because they do not play in the league, but they still just say they're in the ACC. I see graphics on social media that includes Notre Dame in the ACC.
So you think it's just a lame way of trying to argue around the Notre Dame isn't in a conference thing, or what?
I really can't explain it. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Because that's the only thing that makes sense to me is they're just trying to sidestep that argument, you know, by we play 5 or 6 ACC games a year, but yeah, but you don't pay conference dues. You're not in the conference. Be quiet is my counter argument.
Yeah, I argued before when all that was happening, even before the season was saved, I made the comment this is what the ACC should do. They should go to Notre Dame and say, do you want to play football this season? You're going to sign a 20-year contract to play in the ACC. Otherwise, you're not playing this season. We're playing by ourselves, just like everybody else is. We're all playing an ACC-only schedule, and you're not going to play football this year unless you sign a 20-year contract.
I agree. I think that, a lot of these ADs and conference commissioners need to start stepping up to Notre Dame and being like, hey, guess what? You either join a P5 conference or you're going to get shut out of P5 games, and good luck trying to, get into the playoffs with Cincinnati and Navy on your resume,
Yeah, I'm with you.
But okay, so enough of that. I wanted to run something past you to see that how it might affect your ranking of Jimbo Fisher. And let me start by asking you, do you remember two LSU football players by the name of Jacob Hester and Matt Flynn?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, for those of you in the audience who don't know, they played at LSU during the early Les Miles years. They were there for the 2007 championship, and Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator at LSU for their first 3 years while they were there. Now, Jacob Hester has a radio show on ESPN Radio Baton Rouge affiliate, and he has Matt Flynn on as a guest during football season once or twice a week. And they say that whenever they watch Texas A&M play, they're normally either watching the game together or they're texting back and forth during it. And they say that somewhere around 35 to 40% of the plays that Jimbo runs are the same plays he ran at LSU without one bit of nuance. Now, how does that strike you? Do you think that's surprising or no surprise? What?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, I'm guessing when we're talking about Jimbo at LSU, we're talking early to we're talking under Saban. So we're talking the early 2000s.
No, he was there during Miles' first 2 years too.
Okay, so up to 05, 06. Okay.
06.
Yeah.
Gary Croton was the offensive coordinator in 07. At the end of the 06 season, that's when Jimbo, of course, went to Florida State. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the OC there for 3 years before Bobby retired.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is back then, and even later, LSU ran most of its plays under center, and now they don't, or Texas A&M does not. So I would think that it would be you could run the same plays.
Texas A&M runs out of the eye a good bit. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's probably not much more than 15 to 20%, but it's more than most teams, actually.
Yeah, so it's more than most teams, but back then, I bet LSU was running only a shotgun on third down and probably 4+.
Yeah, with Jamarcus, during Jamarcus's last year, they were actually in shotgun and second down a good bit. But okay. I mean, I'm not trying to split hairs.
So that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's just that the formation, especially with LSU, if you're bringing up LSU or Wisconsin, somebody like that, they've very much changed just the setup of the offense play to play. Now, that doesn't mean you can't run basically the same play. Well, I think play calling is overrated. Number one, I'm not saying it's not important. It's important, but I think it's overrated. I think we get on here every week during the college football season and people pick apart plays. Well, that's easy to do when they don't work. but that he runs 30 to 40% of the same plays that they did. I would think that in a base offense that's a reasonable expectation. Like, I don't see it sounds like they're making fun of Jimbo Fisher being outdated.
I definitely think that part of Texas A&M's offensive struggles could be because there's just so much footage on. Because, like I said, they say that he's running these plays without one bit of nuance. I mean, normally coaches change stuff at least a little bit here and there over time. And he's saying that they're running the plays the exact same way as he was almost 20 years ago.
Well, that's a good point that you make, because if we sit here and watch college football all Saturday, almost everybody's running the same offense and running the same plays. But the nuances are many times the differences in getting a defensive end out of position so you can run an RPO and get him out of, get him in conflict, or you're taking a linebacker and putting him in the wrong place because he's confused. Those kind of window dressings that change things, that allow the play to work, even though it's the same play you ran 20 years ago. So if he's not being able to run the same concepts but give it a different look to put the defense in conflict, then yeah, I can see their criticism.
Okay, but does that at all change your ranking? Like, would you bump Mark Stoops above Jimbo, or now you feel more or less the same after hearing that?
No, that doesn't change my. Jimbo Fisher is recruiting out of his mind. He's won a national championship. He won big at Florida State. He has yet to break through at Texas A&M. I'm comfortable with the ranking. If we really look at the record, I could drop Mark Stoops. I don't believe he should be dropped. Of course, my rankings are I believe them to what they should be. But Mark Stoops is not. He hasn't done anything from a record standpoint, anything special.
Well, I think that Stoops is definitely, from what I hear about him, he's got this long-term vision. Like, he's not pumping recruits full of hot air to get them to come over. Like, he signed a 5-star last year, and they asked the 5-star, why did you choose Kentucky over, all these other schools that are better? And he said because Mark Stoops was the only one that didn't lie to him during the recruiting process. Mm-hmm. And it's just stuff like that makes me think that he's building Kentucky the right way, because you can't run Kentucky like you would an Alabama. It's you might get a little bit of mileage out of it, but sooner or later it's going to blow up in your face.
Yeah. Well, I would think that I would be one of the few people out there that are ranking coaches that rank Jimbo as low as I do. I would think that most people would rank him above 4, but these are all apples to oranges comparisons because of the programs being different. Mark Stoops could be a better football coach than Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, like to me, the Jimbo's coaching skill begins and ends with him being able to blow smoke up the backsides of 17-year-old kids and get them to sign on the dotted line. That's really all he does. That's worth a damn. Everything else is just kind of or it's bad. Really, do you really think Kellen Mond was just a terrible college quarterback? If somebody were to tell me that, I'd think that is complete and total nonsense. That guy could have done so much more at another school, but he stuck it out at A&M, and he didn't get anything for it, in my opinion.
Well, he had physical attributes. There's no question. He had size, he had arm strength, and mobility. He had those 3 things going for him.
Okay. Want to end it with this. You're in line to place bets at Vegas. You got $100 bill in your hand, and you're going to place a bet on USC's over/under win total for next year, and the over/under is 8.5. Which way you going?
Well, I would like to be looking at a schedule, of course, when I do that.
Oh, well, go ahead and pull it up.
So I'll note that we've got 2 other calls. I was going to make this the last call. I'll honor the 2 calls on the line, and then I got to get out of here. So
yeah, I think I heard them because there's like a very slight click every time someone else calls in, and I think I heard 2 of them.
Yeah, I'm looking at them. So yeah, my if my laptop sits here for too long, we'll have to save that question for another time. I got to get going, and I don't have access to the schedule, so we will look at that. I will be making all sorts of predictions later. So thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for taking my call. Later.
All right. 2 calls. Here we go. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Porter.
Hey, Porter. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'll try to make this quick. What was 3 through 5? I missed when you released it.
All right, here we go. Let me grab them.
I assume Saban and Smart was 1 and 2, right?
5 Stoops, 4 Fisher, 3 Kelly, 2 Smart, 1 Saban.
Yeah, you nailed it. I totally agree. Good job on that. Going back to your all-time program criteria that I guess you released it a couple weeks ago. When you talk about major bowl wins, did you go back all the way to when the Cotton Bowl stopped being a major bowl game, then it started being a major bowl game again? Did you go back and were you that specific on major bowl wins? Or the Peach Bowl's another great example where
yes and no.
Peach Bowl was not a major bowl. What's that?
Yes and no. So yeah, I cannot invest the time to be dissecting every year of college football. You know, if somebody was going to pay me, you know, if the end result justified, I would love to do a lot of things with an all-time ranking. I would like to look at schedule strength. I'd like to look at records versus ranked teams, and if I had a staff of people, I'd have them doing all sorts of stuff. But I made some judgment calls that were, I won't even say easy, but that I was at least able to quantify mathematically and do it fairly easily to say, the Fiesta Bowl was not always the Fiesta Bowl. The Fiesta Bowl at its outset for about 10 years was a lower tier bowl. And then they were able to, by just sheer money, bring in better, more attractive matchups. And by about 1979 or 80, that became a major bowl game. To your point, the Peach Bowl had the likes of Purdue, Virginia games and Purdue, Tennessee games in the 80s with 7 and 5 teams. And obviously was elevated to a New Year's Six status. So no, I did not consider the Peach Bowl to be a major bowl game until it elevated. The Cotton Bowl, I wasn't going to go through when it dropped to, because you could also make the argument that before it was elevated again to a New Year's Six game, that there were matchups like Texas and Arkansas. There were matchups like K-State and Arkansas comes to mind around 2010-11 when they were both ranked like 5th or 8th in the country. So was that a major bowl game? So the Cotton Bowl, I just said it's a major bowl. But Texas Tech played in a Cotton Bowl against USC in 1994. They were like 6 and 5. Sure. So it's not perfect.
So do you, and then another thing about your overall rankings, in 2007, you said, I think you listed think you said you didn't list them. You just said you had like 6 national champions. Do you remember who all you gave national championships to in 2007?
Well, you got 2007. It was obviously LSU, Kansas, USC. Who else? Georgia. I may not have had anyone past that.
So did Kansas win that Orange Bowl? Is that why you gave them a national championship?
Yeah, they went 12-1. They had the best record in the country.
So who did they beat in Orange Bowl? I'm trying to remember. That was
They beat
fun, crazy.
Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah, may have been. Okay, all right. Okay, I wasn't quite sure. I knew that
Missouri went 12-1.
You gave Missouri one?
Let me double check on that. I got to find my list here. I was going to go through all those because I know people have questions and they want to see each year. And I was going to do a series of live streams and say, let's go through the 2000 teens. Let's go through the 2000s and throw it all out there and see who agrees and disagrees and what the arguments are concerning national championships.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I know you're trying to get off the line, but you did give my Georgia Bulldogs one, right?
Absolutely, I did.
I think we're the best team that year.
How many Georgia championships did I list? Was it 3? They must have 3. 21, 07, and what was the other one? 42,
80,
46.
80 and 42.
80? Oh, of course,
okay.
80. Oh, they got 5. They got 5 here. Anyway.
So 42, 46, 80, 2007, and 21. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. All right. Have a good week. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Porter. Appreciate it. All right. Next up and next to last here at the Voice of College Football. You're up.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Mark? How you doing? It's Ballard.
Ballard, how are you?
Yes, sir. I'm doing great, man. Just watching the final day of the Masters. I know I said something the other day, and I think you said that I don't know what you said, but looks like Scheffler or whoever for the United States took the lead. But anyway, getting on track with college football for the SEC coach rankings. There's no doubt that we start with Saban and then Kirby Smart.
Yep.
I would put, honestly, and maybe it's recency bias or whatever, just because of recruiting, I think you do Saban, Kirby, Jimbo Fisher, and then maybe the rest could fight for the next few spots, obviously. Maybe you go to Lane Kiffin and what he's building with an offensive juggernaut at Ole Miss. Mark Stoops, here's the thing about Mark Stoops is he's been there, at Kentucky quite some time, and he's done good. He's just like Kentucky's one of those teams you just never know what you're going to get out of them. Are they going to, have maybe a 8-4 or 7-5 or, whatever. But, I won't go through and try to rank all of the coaches. I'd still put guys like Clark at Vanderbilt, just because of the status of the Vanderbilt program. Even though he's still just getting into it with Derek Mason gone, I'd still put maybe a guy like him at the bottom. Harsin is, he's got his stuff going on, so I wouldn't put him too high. But what are your thoughts?
Well, think about this. I ranked Jimbo 4 and I ranked Stoops 5, and I may actually believe that Mark Stoops is a better coach than Jimbo Fisher. And here's why. You got to put these things into context, because what was Kentucky football before Mark Stoops? They were recruiting in the 60s and 70s. An SEC team was recruiting in the 60s and 70s.
Now they can get
under multiple coaches. So it wasn't like there was just one bad coach showed up and did an awful job. There were multiple coaches for Kentucky football, and none of them could elevate them past 3-9, 2-10, 4-8, over and over and over and over and over. Most of the time. It's not like they didn't jump up and go to a bowl game once in a while, but that was basically Kentucky's plight. Now It's over the last few years, he's won 4 consecutive bowl games, gone to a couple of New Year's bowl games. He's gone 10-3 twice in the last 4 years. He's recruiting in the 25 range the last few years, and number 12 this last cycle. Like, that's unheard of at Kentucky. Where Jimbo Fisher, going 8-4 at Texas A&M. Okay, he went 9-1 2 years ago. Okay, great. His other years are all 8-4 and 7-5. Who doesn't do that at Texas A&M?
True. Right.
But he has won a national championship, and he is recruiting out of his mind. So it was a tough call.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I didn't really think of, like you mentioned what Kentucky was prior to Stoops, was practically just call it a dumpster fire. And, I mean, at the very least, he's always winning six games. I think they just came off a 10-win season a couple years ago with a bowl win. So, I mean, I didn't think much of, what the programs were before the coaches got there. I'm thinking the 500 coaches there, recruiting pretty good and everything, and what they're doing right now. But yeah, I would rank, now that you mention it, and now that I think about it, I could put Stoops a little bit higher. And like you said, I think you said around 3 for Stoops because of what Kentucky has become with him, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so what do you think about Brian Kelly?
Oh, well, LSU definitely has a standard in Death Valley. I mean, I don't know if it should be championship, every single year. But they got to find that coach that can get back to competing, beating Alabama and teams like that, and winning the West on a more regular basis. Because think about it, when Les Miles beat Alabama in 2011, I mean, Alabama won like 8 or 9 straight until finally the 2019 team. So I love Brian Kelly and how he recruited defensively at Notre Dame. And LSU has been, they claim to be DBU, which obviously that's another debate for another time that we're always having. But I think he's definitely going to come in and step up the recruiting game. He hasn't even coached the game yet, but I love the hire. I think it's the best hire of the off season so far. And, we'll just have to wait and see. I think big things are ahead. And it will really, honestly, it would not surprise me if within the next 5 years he's winning the SEC and maybe does win another championship for the Tigers. That's my bold claim on Kelly. I think he's gonna go pretty far with it.
Okay. All right, Ballard. Appreciate the call, man.
Thank you. You have a good one.
You too. All right. Here's our finale. Should be a good one. Welcome into the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Chris.
What's going on?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. I'm doing all right. I was just going to see if you're not, I know you want to close your show out, so I don't want to waste too much of your time. But,
you're fine. You're not wasting my time. You're a caller.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, some people don't like what I say, so that's why I'm going to be, real careful what I say, because, I'm not saying that they're wrong. I think people think I'm kind of a jerk, and I apologize if I've offended anybody. It's really not what I try to do. Maybe I'm a little too assertive, I guess, in what I try to tell people. I'm sorry if I am. It's really not who I am as a person. It might come across like I am. I have to take medicine for a condition I suffer from, so that might have something to do with it too. But anyway, I was just going to ask you, this is kind of an old question, and it's maybe not something you want to really talk about, but, my perception
whether it's the right perception or not, because I'm an outsider to this whole thing, to be honest with you, Mark. I'm not involved with really any of it. I think I petitioned to get the BCS renewed because I just thought it was a better deal for everybody. That's the only thing. If I didn't think it was, I wouldn't. I mean, what it was is I had communications with Mike Tranghese, and I think what they did, it wasn't because of me, but I think he, I don't know if he casted a deciding vote or not, but they basically went along with, that's when they, there was two proposals. One was the CFP, the other would have been the BCS, and for a 4-year period there, but it was unanimous. So I don't think it really had anything to do with me. I think they went ahead and voted for the BCS, that interim period there. I don't know if you remember, like 2010 to 2013.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm getting at is, so that's kind of a 4-year period there where if we want to like compare formats, not that we have to. I mean, there's really nothing to compare because they're completely different in my opinion. I mean, you might disagree with that, but I see like that they're completely different. But so it's kind of impossible to guess what the playoff might have done during those 4 years. But what we can do though is we can look at those 4 years maybe and get an opinion about whether that was a fair way to select, I guess, one champion those 4 years. And of course, there's going to be I think there's always controversy, isn't there? But was there really any doubt, really, though, that, like, for example, in 2010, was there really any doubt that it wasn't Auburn? I mean, I kind of think we can argue about whether it was the right format, but I think most people would probably agree that the right champion was crowned. Do you disagree with that?
So if I remember right, Auburn was undefeated. Oregon was undefeated. I believe they were the only two undefeated teams. So I don't have an issue with that season. We had a bunch of one-loss teams.
Texas Christian went undefeated.
Oh,
they beat Wisconsin.
Well, there you go. TCU beat, they beat Wisconsin by 2 points in the Rose Bowl. So
they won the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
So is there really controversy? But I guess my question would be, that proves that the format wasn't right. There were two undefeated teams. Is that really what makes it right or wrong? I mean, that's kind of what I'm asking you.
Well,
to me, it looks like it's just maybe just go ahead.
I don't have an issue with that particular season because I can't imagine that TCU, prior to being in the Big 12, played the kind of schedule that would warrant them having an argument.
Okay. Well, I mean, you wouldn't. So in your opinion, there's not like a contested championship that season, right?
Exactly.
Is that correct?
I'm good with 2010.
What about? Okay. Another season that just comes to my mind. I don't know if it comes to. I mean, again, I'm asking. I want your opinion on this stuff. That's the reason I'm bringing it up. There was a season, I think, it was with the year Alabama beat Alabama beat LSU in the national champ. I think it was LSU.
The next year.
People were. Was that the next year? Okay.
Yeah, 2011.
Okay, well, let's talk about the next year then. I didn't really see that was because what they ended up doing, again, it's like, okay, so some people didn't like the fact that Stanford or whoever it was, I guess it was Oklahoma State, didn't advance, but was there really any doubt, though, that that's kind of what I'm getting at, is I think it's kind of the same thing. I don't think that there's really, we can argue about, Oklahoma State didn't get the chance that maybe they should have, but honestly, I just the way I kind of look at it is like, they still got to play Stanford. I mean, that's Andrew Luck. That's in the Fiesta Bowl. For not being in the national championship, that's a pretty good pairing of teams.
Well, there's all sorts of good pairings of teams. That doesn't mean that we got the national championship pairing correct. There's all sorts of good pairings of teams playing in postseason games, but those other games are virtually meaningless. They are meaningless in terms of determining a championship. There's only one championship game. In the BCS, there was only one championship game. So in terms of
national championship,
one national championship game, yes. So therefore, the other games are in this discussion meaningless. So going to play Stanford in the Fiesta Bowl, yes, they're meaningless. I'm not talking that they are meaningless. I'm saying towards selecting the national champion, they are meaningless. So Oklahoma State in 2011, why were they not given an opportunity to play for the national championship? They won a conference championship. They had one loss. Alabama had one loss. They did not win a conference championship. So that's the issue. It has nothing to do with who I think are the best teams. like you, I have an opinion on who the best teams are. And in 2011, I believe the best team was Alabama, and the second best team was LSU. But it shouldn't be about who we think are the best teams. It should be about who earned the spot. And do we have enough spots
again
to accommodate all the teams that earned?
Well, it isn't exactly like Oklahoma State. They got beat. I mean, I think there were circumstances surrounding it. I think they lost some team members, didn't they? And maybe I'm wrong about that. But
yeah, there was a plane crash and there was a tragedy the night before or a day and a half before they played Iowa State. Yep.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking. And I think that, it's very possible that maybe it's even definite that impacted the result. I don't know. But regardless, I remember Mike Gundy. They asked Mike Gundy about it. I think just informally. I don't think it was like, "Hey, Mike, tell us." I mean, it was just kind of like. But when they asked him what he thought, and then their quarterback, who was their quarterback? Like, remember, was it Whedon?
Yes.
Anyway, I think it was Whedon.
Brandon Whedon.
Yep. Both of them actually. Okay. I think they both actually said. I might be misquoting them, so don't take me like as being the official. But if I remember correctly, they both basically admitted that. If it was, in a pinch or whatever, but they both basically admitted that they thought that they probably were the second team to go. In other words, if they didn't really have an issue with them not being selected, if it came down to had to do with Iowa State compared, I guess, to was it LSU that Alabama had beat or lost to, and so I think they both basically admitted that, in a pinch that they wouldn't have gone. So I don't know that either one of them were crushed by the decision, but that's just kind of the impression I had. I don't know. Maybe they were. I can't speak for either one of them, but I guess my point is, Mark, I think, I know you're pro playoff. I'm not. I mean, that's kind of where the divide is, but I don't know that I can't speak for either one of them, but maybe they like the fact that they were in the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for either one of them, but maybe that's where they thought they deserved to go. It's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe I'm wrong, but they got to play Stanford, and I don't know. That's a pretty good opponent to play if you're not in the championship.
Yes.
That's just my opinion.
That is great. They played Stanford in the Fiesta Bowl. The game, I think, went to overtime. It was a very close game, like a 31-28. It was a great game. It was a spectacle. It was an event. It was a bowl game. But our focus is on who should have been playing in the national championship game. Were there other teams that earned just as much of a right to play in the national championship game? So what their little consolation prize is insignificant. It doesn't matter. Oklahoma State earned the right to play in a national championship game. They were a conference champion with one loss. More so than that, we should have had a actual playoff that would have afforded other teams the opportunity to play. It's simply not fair.
Okay.
The 2011 situation was not fair. Not fair to Oklahoma State, and I don't care if they were gracious about it or if they kicked and screamed about it. That's inconsequential to me as well. It's more about we had a 12-1 team that won the Big 12 championship, and they did not get an opportunity to play for a national championship when two teams that already played and play in the same conference, and one team did not win a championship at the conference level, got the opportunity to play. And those were the two best teams, in my opinion. But that, again, that shouldn't matter. People's opinions shouldn't matter because people's opinions are wrong all the time.
Well, like I said, I know that Iowa State beat them. I don't know how good Iowa State was, but I think
they weren't.
If I'm not mistaken, and you probably, well, they weren't terrible though. I mean, they were comparable. I think 5-7, if I remember correctly. They weren't good. They weren't bad. I mean, they were Iowa State. I mean, I don't know. Iowa State's usually pretty good. I mean,
well, they used.
I think it was an overtime.
They've been good recently.
I think the game went to overtime, and I think that's kind of what I looked at. It was like, well,
they were 6
two
and
overtime
7.
losses to compare.
Iowa State wasn't that good.
So you have two over. Well, they weren't that good, but they
again,
weren't that bad.
that doesn't matter to me. We should have a playoff system that accommodates teams that earn the right to play. And those factors should include your record, a conference championship. But we had a screwed up system where there was half computers and half, and I know it wasn't virtually half, it was 2/3 and 1/3 computers and voters determining who should play in the national championship game.
Well, I guess my point is, I think, notwithstanding all the stuff that has to be looked at and all that, I think what Alabama lost to LSU that year was the division. I don't think it never came down to the conference because LSU beat Alabama in a divisional title game.
Mm-hmm.
So Alabama didn't have a chance to play for the conference title. Is kind of what it was,
because they lost.
So I kind of think that maybe, well,
it's not that they didn't have a chance.
They weren't admitted.
They lost.
Well, they weren't admitted.
They lost. They lost the division. There's a logical procedure to determine a division champion, and Alabama did not meet that criteria. They lost to LSU. So they didn't win a division. It's not that they weren't given a chance. Now, when you say Michigan State didn't go to the 2013 national championship game, the BCS championship game, that is a perfect example of making the statement they weren't given the chance. They had the same criteria, the same qualifications as Auburn. Auburn was a 12-1 team with a conference championship. Michigan State was 12-1 with a conference championship. Michigan State was not given the chance to play for a national championship. That same statement can't be applied to Alabama in 2011. Alabama was given the chance to win a division championship, but they failed because they lost to LSU. They were given a chance to win the division championship, but they lost.
Didn't Michigan State lose that game, though? Didn't they lose their championship game?
No, Michigan State beat Ohio State.
Well, I mean, in the Rose Bowl, though, didn't they lose in the Rose Bowl?
Well, that's number one. They did win the Rose Bowl. Number two, that's after the fact anyway. That was after the decision was made who was going to play in the BCS championship game. My point is there's not enough spots. They did win that game. When there's a BCS championship game and there's only 2 spots, you've got situations like Michigan State and Auburn who should be playing in the national championship game. The answer is there shouldn't be just a national championship game. There should be a playoff so they both are given the opportunity because they both earned the opportunity.
Well, I guess the way I kind of look at it is for like Michigan State. I don't remember who they played that year. Who was it? Was it Stanford? I don't remember.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell me. But okay. I mean, I kind of look at it differently. I kind of look at it like, for a team that isn't in the national championship, I think they still have a pretty good consolation prize, in my opinion. You still get to go to the Rose Bowl.
We're not into consolation prizes. The conversation is who should be playing and given the opportunity, who has earned the opportunity to play for a national championship. And in 2013, Michigan earned a right to play in a national championship game just as much as Auburn did.
As Auburn did? I think there was another team with only 1 loss, though, too, wasn't there? Wasn't Louisville that way? I think Louisville only had 1 loss.
Yeah, if you want to include Louisville, again, if you want to go to lower levels of football, and that's a debate. I think it's a reasonable debate, just like TCU in 2010, Louisville in 2013.
And Central Florida had a pretty good season, too, didn't they?
Yeah, they beat Baylor in the Fiesta Bowl.
So you're looking at a kind of a 14 playoff after the fact, I guess. Make it work, right? Kind of a 14 playoff afterwards to make it work.
Again, depending on what your determination would be on group of 5 teams, because obviously UCF and Louisville did not play anywhere close to the competition that Auburn and Michigan State did week to week.
So you would limit it. If it was up to you, then you just limit it to 1 game after postseason. And that's kind of what I was trying to figure out where you stood on it. Sounds like you'd limit it just to 1 game after, kind of like what we're doing now, except maybe without the seedings. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, I told
that's kind of what I was trying to figure out.
I told an earlier phone call that I would like there to be a determination one way or the other on the group of 5 and not kind of tease them into believing that they're part of the process because they are in a very small way, that they are either given an opportunity each season or they're not.
You know what, they could have, really, if you think about it, I don't see anything wrong with just, they could have their own championship game, really, apart from, you know, it's just like the FB.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, and then, you know, if you think about it, even kind of like we were talking about in 1998, really, I don't think that there should have been, I know Tennessee won the championship, and I think they would have probably pummeled Tulane, but I kind of think maybe even like a separate title game between Tulane and Tennessee would have been one way to settle the score. You know, how many times is Tulane going to be undefeated? You know, probably not too many. Maybe you don't like that idea, but kind of like that way they're admitted almost every time. If you admit the FCS, or I'm sorry, the G5 champion, if they have their own championship, I mean, if there's a separate championship for the P5, then you could maybe just pair like that. At least it would have worked out one year. I don't know if it would have worked every other year after that or not, but that season it would have worked out okay. You could have put Tulane and Tennessee together.
So you would want
a good idea, or
you would want the Power Five to play out a championship scenario.
I'm just saying so that there's a universal champion. That's all. I'm not trying to.
Sure.
I'm not trying to make it easier for a G5 to win it.
And to do that,
that way we don't have to.
I'm just trying to clarify. You would want the Group of Five champion to play the Power Five champion for a final champion.
If they're undefeated, sure.
Yeah. Oh, if they're undefeated.
There was one season. Well, if they're, it's kind of like what you were saying about Oklahoma State or whoever. Actually, that season, I don't know if you remember, if Houston had beaten Southern Mississippi, they would have been 13-0, and I think they would have been in the BCS. I don't think they'd have been in the championship game, but they would have been admitted to one of the five, title games. But they got beat by Southern Mississippi. Beat them really pretty good, I guess, and I think they ended up playing Penn State, and I don't know who won. Maybe you can. Ended up playing Penn State in another different game. Oh, yeah, Houston. But I'm just thinking, if you have an undefeated team like that, I don't know. I mean, I kind of look at it like that they deserve it maybe better than a team that isn't undefeated, but maybe you don't agree with that. If they're undefeated, they weren't undefeated. I mean, they got beat by Southern Mississippi, beat them, but they were 12-0, I think, but leading into that game. Conference championship. They were 12-0, and then they played Southern Mississippi for the conference championship. And then Southern Mississippi beat them really pretty good. They took them out. But I think they were missing their coach, though. I think someone was gone. He was going to Texas A&M. Did I lose you, Mark?
No, I'm here. I'm listening. All right.
I thought I lost you.
So we'll wrap it up with this, Chris. What is your system to determine a national champion? What would you do?
Oh, I don't really have one. I just, like I said, I was just trying to get your ideas. And I like the BCS better than the CFP. That's all. I don't really I don't prefer the playoffs.
Okay. All right, Chris. Well, thanks for the call.
All right.
Have a good night. All right. I took about 4 more phone calls than I said I was going to. There's one other person on the line, and I apologize because your phone call is going to be about 30 seconds or 41 seconds or 52 seconds or something like that. Oh, it's George. George.
Yeah, I just wanted to say epic show.
Epic.
It was a good show. Yeah.
3.5 hours long.
I for 3 hours at work. Like 6 hours or something?
Yeah. No, it's 3.5 hours.
Is that really all it was?
3.5 hours. And I got 2 super chats. I think I made $7. How much money am I making per hour?
That's because
like $2 an hour. Man, I gotta stop doing this. It's too bad
they don't have to guarantee you. They should have to give you minimum wage. YouTube owes you money.
YouTube?
I don't know.
They shouldn't be responsible.
I'm just saying
for
there should be some. Well, we should get you up to at least $15.95 an hour because that's what they're playing at Burgerville down here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. I tried to brainstorm. I'll work on it. I'm going to start using visualization. I'm going to visualize you coming on telling us what you got, who your sponsor is.
Uncle Rico has chipped in on behalf of George. Look at that.
Oh, thank you, Uncle Rico. We love you on behalf of everybody on the channel.
Absolutely.
That was nice.
It was very nice. Uncle Rico, thank you so much for that. That was very kind. All right, George, what you got for me? I said 30 seconds.
I ain't got nothing, but I'm watching the Masters. They're almost done. Only a couple holes left.
Yep.
This guy's winning by 8 or 9 strokes.
Yep.
He's known for 5 holes. He's going to win anyway. You don't see that every day.
No, you don't. Tiger won by like 12 shots one year.
Right. That's what it reminds me of. And he's a new guy. He's a Texan. Looks like a good boy. And young. Maybe he'll be the next whatever. But out of all the hours of watching the Masters, I've never seen before so many people hit the golf ball like I would, where it goes in the bushes and you can't even find it. It's been really fun to watch. All these professionals, like taking a half an hour to find their ball because it's so far and God knows nowhere. Like, but they're almost on the next hole across the tree barrier, you know? Crazy. Makes it fun, though.
Yeah, that's because,
right.
the Masters is usually plush and easy for these golfers to toss up like a 10 or 12 under par. But I guess not this year.
Right. Sad Buckeye said, I use the Amazon code to support Mark. Isn't that nice? He actually knows about your portal and uses it.
That's another thing. Amazon link, everybody. Everybody, you shop on Amazon at some point. Almost everybody does. So please use our link in the description section. Appreciate that. Cool.
Great.
All right, George. Thanks for calling, man.
All right.
Appreciate it.
See you on the next show. Bye-bye.
All righty.
See y'all.
See you, George.
Hey, Joey. Thank you.
Joey
Foster just gave 10.
Joey, thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. Uncle Rico. Yep, I got it.
Joey, I asked everybody to make their logo so I can tell who you cheer for. So Joey Foster put up 2 or 3 West Virginia logos one day, and I couldn't recognize them. And he put that one up, and I said, "That's it. That's it. Now I can tell you cheer for." I like that logo.
Joey's the man. Well, George, I appreciate it, man.
Yep.
You have a good day.
All right. Later, Gators.
All right. Joey, thank you. Uncle Rico, thank you. Appreciate that. There's Joey. Joey is responsible for our West Virginia channel. So between Joey and Golden Blue Dude, of course, Coos from Coos's Corner, Justin Walker does a fabulous job for us, and Travis Kenobi, but in particular, Golden Blue Dude and Joey Foster are responsible for our West Virginia channel. So get on over there and please subscribe. And like D-Rock Irish says, please hit the like button and subscribe. Joey, thank you so much for that. And Uncle Rico, appreciate that. Thank you so much for your contribution here at the Voice of College Football. We'll be back sometime, I believe, Monday. And I'm either going to move on and we're going to start diving into national championships and start talking about what the last few phone calls were about, going through my national championship scenarios. Or we move on to quarterback rankings and schedule previews, or maybe I do a top 10 coaches list now that we've done every conference. We'll get right to it, and we will send out the notification so you know when we go live on Monday. See you then.